And I have the honor of introducing our sponsors. Without our sponsors, without the support of and the generosity of these firms, we really cannot put together programs like this. The Encompass sponsors for this year, the presenting sponsor, ZGF, our community host involved HOK and Marmel Radziner. Friends of Encompass this year are Bester Architecture, Clark Construction, Ox Architecture, Lorcan O'Hurley Architects, H.E.D., KFA Architecture, Co-Architects, NAC Architecture, and participating sponsors include Page and Turnbull, HKS Architects, Woods Baggett, SAA Interiors and Architecture, Chu Gooding, AECOM, and GGA Plus Architecture. We also have the honor of presenting our annual sponsors. It's our annual sponsors and the sponsors for each of our events that really give us the ability to put programs together, to reach out to communities, and to be offering the membership services that we empower the architecture community with. This year's annual sponsors include our decarbonization sponsor, SoCal Edison, our gold sponsors, Gruen Associates and ZGF, our silver sponsors, Cumming, Co-Architects, Lair Architects, Egan Simon, AC Martin, HED, SOM, URW. Our bronze sponsors include REX Engineering Group, Bernard's, Collins LLP, KFA, Sharp Interior Systems, Matt Construction, McNicholas and McNicholas, Woods Baggett, Ascentech, and More Rubel Udell. Once again, let's do a round of applause for our sponsors. And if your firm is interested, please contact us here and we can give you more information on how you too can help support the programs and initiatives of AIA Los Angeles. So back to you, Kareem. Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to introduce Leslie Sidnor, AIA NOMA. She is our AIA Vice President and President-elect and the Director of Cumming Group. Leslie, welcome to the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 6th Annual Encompass Conference, From the Block to the Beach. Our original focus back in 2017 was equity in procurement practices and ways to increase opportunities for underrepresented firms. And we looked inward at the profession. In 2020, we pivoted to an exploration of equitable practices in the workplace and urban resilience in our communities in the face of deliberate neglect and divestment. Encompass 2020 happened before the murder of George Floyd, which made everyone aware of what those in urban communities of colors have always known, that the system is rigged against poor and communities of color. In June 2020, the J.E.D.I committee was formed in partnership with SoCal NOMA with a vision to advance issues of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion within the architecture profession. 2021, Encompass asked what's next, as we heard from leaders in the community about the work that they're doing and what we as an architect can do to be involved and how to support their work. Today, we'll hear updates from last year's panelists, Brandon Sticks, Salam Bailey of the Think Watts Foundation, and Anthony Jolly, owner of Hot and Cool Cafe. They really energized the conference last year as we continue to look outward at how we as a profession can make real change as placemakers and citizen architects. We'll also discuss how we can undertake real and meaningful community engagement. Tomorrow, we will explore restorative justice in the built environment and look at case studies. I really hope that you walk away with strategies to engage with the communities that you work in, and will continue to move the needle toward a resilient and equitable Los Angeles. And now, please allow me to introduce Joshua Foster, Associate AIA, my fellow past co-chair of the J.E.D.I Committee, and founder and CEO of JAF Creative Solutions. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank you very much. We're really looking forward to today. Thank you all for being here. This is going to be a really great panel that we have with two people that are that have no issue of understanding what community engagement is, and they're, I guess you can say, friends of Encompass. We've invited them back. They were so great last year, and we're really looking forward to being able to hear a bit more in depth about what they're doing, what they've been doing the past year that since we've spoken to them, and just how that we can all take part in the idea of community engagement in a real way that moves past an idea and actually turns into action. So without further ado, I'm not going to spend too much time in introducing them, because part of the way we're going to start, they're going to explain a bit about what they do, who they are, before we dive into some questions. And this is going to be a unique and interactive panel here. So all of the questions that we end up asking our panelists, you all have a chance to answer as well. And that's going to be through an interactive profile that you can set up and go through your phone or go through your website page, and we'll give you directions on that. So make sure you all are ready to be part of this awesome panel. So we'll get started off with Tony. So Tony, if you can just introduce yourself, what you do, and then we'll move over to Sticks, and then we'll get started full on.
Okay. I am Tony Jolly, owner and founder of Hot and Cool Cafe, located in Leimert Park Village, Los Angeles. And I'm a coffee professional. I've been in coffee for about 25 years, originally from DC, and finding a good cup of coffee has led my journey from DC to Denver to now here in Los Angeles, California, where we initially thought about opening a roaster and retailer when we arrived almost 5 years ago. But after we opened up the doors and really listened to the community and their needs, it was, South LA is a big time food desert. We lived in Leimert Park when we moved here, and it was hard for me to find something I like to eat when I was getting off work at night. And so we kind of pivoted our business plan, and which was like 72 pages. I think we used about 3 of them so far. And we opened up this now vegan cafe, and not more than a cafe. It's a community space. As soon as we opened, I think the entire community had a set of keys made, and they come in at their own will and with ideas and using the space to bring these ideas in fruition. So we've been open as of April 21st, coming up about 4 years, and it could not have been a better choice.
Awesome, thank you very much. All right, Sticks, you're up.
Shout out Tony, true legend out here in these streets. Thank you, Josh. I'm back for round 2. I see. Y'all can't, as if y'all couldn't get enough of me. I'm back, like I never left. No. My name, for those who don't know me, my name is Sticks. I am the founder of the Think Watts Foundation, founder of Think Watts. And my background started formally in still in entertainment, rapper, performer, songwriter, producer. I've been able to develop a few careers, help launch a few careers, been on tours with Snoop and, the TDE family, the J.E.D.I, et cetera, et cetera. I transitioned or added to my current, what I was doing currently as an entertainer right around 2018, and made this official. However, in 2008, I first started doing community work. I seen a woman named Sweet Alice from Watts, California, and she was giving out bikes to a bunch of kids. And in 2008, I was like, hey, I want to do that too. So I asked her for some bikes, and she said, boy, you better get your own. And so from there, that year, actually, that's when I got my first credit card, and I maxed out my credit card. I had like a $2,500 limit because I didn't have no credit. So I maxed out my credit card and I bought turkeys and toys to give out to the community at Ted Watkins Park. So that's where it started. But in 2018, I skipped back forward. I developed the Think Watch Foundation, and it was focused on providing solutions for the community. There's a book really fast. There's a book called Upstream for those who don't know, who haven't read it. And there's a part in there that talks about there's a guy, he's standing at a lake and he sees this kid drowning in a lake. So he jumps in the lake, he saves a kid. Then after that, another kid gets thrown in the lake. He jumps in the lake, saves a kid. And then so after a second, he goes, oh my God, who the hell is throwing these kids in the lake? So I said all that to say, it's all about finding the solution to the problem, not just putting Band-Aids on it. And that's what Think Watch Foundation is. So long story short, I developed Think Watch Foundation. We focus on food insecurities. We focus on financial literacy, entrepreneurship training, climate justice by providing solutions for clean water, EV charging, jobs for EV charging and hydrogen fueling. And we also do sports programming and a multitude of other things, and we'll build in other things that we'll get into later. But that's the Think Watch Foundation.
Awesome. Thank you both. As you all can see, these two gentlemen have done a lot of great work, and we're really looking forward to being able to dive in a bit more about how exactly they do that and how that can be related to what we all do as well in this industry. So as I mentioned before, this is going to be an interactive panel. So we're going to take a few seconds here. If you all can see the screen, someone give me a thumbs up, make sure we're all good. You can see everything. All right, awesome. So here are the instructions. One, if you're using your phone, you can take it out, get this QR code, and it will take you right to menti.com. Or if you're going to use your computer, you can go to www.menti.com. It's going to ask you to enter this code here, 1876-3457. So if you do that, it will allow you all to be able to move along with us. Questions will pop up that we're going to be asking here to who are panelists, and you all can give your answers throughout here as well too. So there will be a lot of different word clouds, and so you'll be able to put in 1, 2 word, 3 word answers, so we can start to populate and see your thoughts as well, as our panelists are able to answer them out loud. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A at the end that I will allow you all to take some time if there's any further questions. So I'll give another 15 seconds. As I see at the bottom, people are populating in. When we get a majority in, then and we'll get moving on it. Awesome. See you all getting on there now. Let's get to 30, and then we'll move forward while the rest of you jump in. All right, awesome. So this first one we're going to go over, you both, Tony and Sticks, you both talked about it a bit, saying where you're from, but we want to dive a little bit deeper. One, to see where everyone's from here, but we want to dive in and learn a bit more about where you grew up kind of shaped what you're doing today. So we'll start off with Sticks on this one. We know very, very well where you were born and raised. That is the bulk of what you do is based in that area. But if there's something that you can touch on that really shaped you as you were younger from growing up in Watts, what is that, and how did that really get you into thinking about the great work you're doing right now?
You know, maybe something that isn't talked about a lot when I have these discussions is, of course, I was born and raised in Watts. And for those who are unfamiliar with Watts or where Watts is, East Side, South Central Los Angeles. 110. We all know we should know what the 110 freeway is. There's an exit called Century, And if you drive east, you'll run right into Watts. Something that shaped me that a lot of people, some may know or some may not, there was a movement in Los Angeles dance culture. It was called crump dancing. And crump dancing was a very impactful, right around the early 2000s. It was a very, some of us know it as clown dancing. And there was an individual named Tommy the Clown who started the first, I guess, era of the dance craze, the local dance craze. And then crump is what evolved into a worldwide thing. I was one of the co-founders of crump. And the reason why I bring that up is because it was a moment in time that produced a lot of like family, a family element. And when you have that family element and you got all of these different young individuals who come together from wherever parts of the city they coming from, Compton, Inglewood, Southgate, Long Beach, Watts, etc. Everyone had their own set of problems because when we used to dance, it was a way to express ourselves and the trauma we were going through. And so that's why, for those who are familiar with it, the dance style is very aggressive. It's aggressive because it was a form of expression. And that was our release from all of the tension and trauma we were going through from our, parents on drugs or our family members on drugs, or somebody just got murdered, or, just not having enough money, not having food. We used crump as an outlet. And what that taught me is that all it takes is for someone to build something that people can go to, and people lives can change. I started what was the biggest crump dancing crew. It was called the Cartoons, our cartoon family. First, as Tommy and the Clown era ended, it rolled into the crump movement, and there used to be subgroups. Crump Cartoon Family was the anti-clown group. It started off as hate because I was like, I don't want to be no clown. We're going to take out all the clowns. Nobody want to, and if you're a LA native, being called a clown, that ain't cool. So I wanted to create something that would go against clowns, but not knowing that I was creating something that would change the lives of all of these individuals. From crump, I was the one who booked the first commercial as a crump dancer. It was like a Joe Boxer commercial, and all of the choreographers across the dance world, they were signed to Block Dance Agency, threatened to leave the agency if I continued to get booked for commercials. So they end up kind of like blackballing me because they got together and didn't want me to get these commercials because they were mad that I couldn't do choreography, that I was only doing this style of dance that no one knew about. And so I tell this story to say it was the support of that family to have me keep pushing, right? It was the want to push the boundaries to help change the lives of all of these kids in Los Angeles. And from there, there's individuals who are touring the world consistently, working with Chris Brown. There's master classes. It's in Germany and France and London. There's people who's been on So You Think You Can Dance, America's Best Dance Crew, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this group that was created helped change the lives. And how this relates to what we do in community is it helped me realize the purpose. And it may not be everybody's purpose, but I know it's my purpose. My purpose is to provide a solution for everyone else to win and benefit. And in return, that benefits me. So that was something I could share.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. The culture, and a lot out of what encapsulates culture very many times is music and dance and the way we express ourselves through the arts, and how that was able to be brought out from where you were from into what that you're doing now. You can really see that passion. So Tony, what about it yourself? You mentioned you're from the East Coast, fellow East Coast native here, and just wondering how exactly that has shaped what you do today.
Okay. By the way, Sticks, you the man. Be able to capture your life experiences and bring it in and put it back into the community. And it's super duper dope, man. So yeah, I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. And at that time it was Chocolate City. You know, it's like Milk Chocolate City now. And we were born of meager means and raised of meager means, but my family, they found a way to kind of send me to private school. My dad was a garbage man, and my mom did the best she could. And so, being in DC, I was raised amongst Black businesses. It was predominantly Black. So all of our friends, 1 out of 3 friends was an entrepreneur, and my dad was an entrepreneur. And so I was around it pretty much most of my life. And, them sacrificing to send me to private school allowed me to go get a decent education, but then go back into where we lived and still be amongst, the culture, my peers. And as I got older, instead of, continuing to do, a lot of my peers were doing at that time that wasn't healthy, I was able to think beyond and expand what I wanted for myself. So like, instead of hanging out and playing basketball all day, or, not doing too much anything of productivity, I would seek employment outside of my demographic. I sought other jobs as well as working with my dad in his trash company. And those other jobs led me to like waiting tables. And in that world, I was able to go outside the inner city of DC and be in Georgetown, and where there's affluent international community. And there I kind of learned myself. I learned I was able to, getting out of my environment, I was able to see who I really was and who I am. And I got to look at my mannerisms, because in my environment, we're all doing the same thing. We're all talking the same way. Right. So once I got outside my environment, I got to see myself. And then there I challenged myself not to be a stigma of, not to be stereotyped, and not to approach people as a Black person and have them think they know who I am, because they think they know who Black people are. So I started to separate myself from that stigma, and I wanted to be well-versed. And it was in the restaurant industry, specifically the coffee business. Starbucks had just migrated to the East Coast. A good friend of mine started working for them, and he's like, "Look, you should come over. You can get some benefits and possibly some stock." This was in '96. I did not get the stock. I'm beating myself up today. So I came over, and then, it was the coffee shop. It was Starbucks. It was '96. It was new. And it kind of, exemplified community. I saw the same people every day. We were right across the street from a courthouse. And I used to see the lawyers come in every day. So I learned about them, their families, their cases. And, us as Blacks in Black America, community is everything, neighborhood's everything. So I saw the community in the coffee shop. And I actually had my first coffee working for Starbucks, and I loved it. So I think like my passion was found there. And I think I kind of, coming out of myself and out of my element, I started to see another part of me that I can grow into working at Starbucks. And so that was kind of like the beginning for me to kind of like, hey, you know what, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on the coffee industry. There's not many people like me. Me and my boy, we was the only 2 Blacks that worked in Starbucks at that time. I ended up kind of moving up the ladder, opened up and helped them open up 3 other Starbucks in DC. And I kind of went on my path from there. And I saw that, that's when I saw that the value of our culture. That I did not have to leave my community and adapt into a new environment. I just had to refine who I was and keep the community within inside me. And that's when I realized how valuable our culture was. That's how I realized how influential African Americans are, because, I have to admit, we brought, a light and energy into a space that was well received and attracted to, and you see it every day when you open up every screen. So coffee to me was the coffee shop, and the coffee experience to me I saw the next level where community starts. And that's when I began my road to open up my own coffee shop. And I guess that was 1998 when we opened up here, and 4 years ago, so 2018. So it was like a 20-year journey for me to get here. But and as I learned that coffee was born and birthed out of Ethiopia, that it's from the African continent. Being an African American, being a conduit of this commodity to the community while representing community, felt I kind of embodied that, and I kind of put a mission behind that. And so, I lived in DC till I was about 29. Then I met my wife and we went to Colorado. And that's where I sank my teeth a little bit deeper in the specialty coffee. I was very hesitant to go to Colorado, going in Chocolate City. It was a big milestone, big step for me, but I guess it was the best thing I've ever done, because once I got there, I involved myself in specialty coffee and worked for a company that eventually sent me to Ethiopia. And I lived in Ethiopia for a year, and I woke up every day looking at people who looked at me in every position in an entire country. And that was inspiring to me. And I had conversations with Ethiopians in my DC dialect, representing the culture of hip hop, fashion, and influence. And they loved it because they never seen anyone like that come to their country to acquire coffee. And we moved on. I lived there for 2 years, and I came back to the States, and that's when I was really dedicated to open up a coffee shop. So life led me to LA, and I was first brought to LA when I moved from Colorado to Northern California. And I met a guy. He told me his friend wanted to open up a coffee shop, and I'm gung-ho. I'm like, let's do it. I didn't know this guy from day one. And he gave me his friend's number, and I called him. And I was living in San Jose, and I drove down to LA, and he brought me to Leimert Park, and I was like, oh, hell no. It was desolate. It was meth encampments in the back. There was 2 stores open. I was like, this is not the specialty coffee demographic, I don't think so. Can we go over there by USC? Can I see that? And he was like, no, it's about to change around here. I knew nothing about California. I knew nothing about LA. I knew nothing about Leimert Park. And so I left and went back to San Jose and called my mentor. And he was like, you should go. You better go. You have to go. You have to go to Leimert Park, and you have to open up a coffee shop. And you have to represent a Black person doing something that younger Black kids will never see. And so that's why I made the decision. And so we came down here 5 years ago, and we've been here and loving it ever since.
Love it. Awesome. I think what's really great about both of your stories is realizing that whether it's a passion that you were kind of born with, in the sense where the ability to be able to dance and the ability to be able to entertain, or it's a passion that you grew into, whether it be coffee or whatever anyone else may have, the ability to be able to put an action plan behind that passion to be able to help bring out who you are and to be able to help others is a really amazing story to be able to have. So we definitely thank you both for sharing that. So as we move on, we're going to jump over to the next question. And for those of you that may have recently just joined in, if you see at the top of the screen, if you go to www.menti.com, put in that code, and you'll be able to answer these questions along as well. So we're gonna do the snake method here. So we're gonna start with you, Tony, on this one. And it's a simple question, but it may have a bit deeper meaning. How do you define community? Like, what does that word mean to you? And for all of you in the audience as well too, feel free to pop in your ideas and thoughts on what community is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I see the words neighborhood, people, and family floating around, and I believe a community is a strong link chain where there are some weak links, and those weak links is where the strong links have to come and support. Mm-hmm. I believe you can't be a part of a community without rolling your sleeves up and doing work. It's used over and over, this word. I mean, especially lately, but it's an action word as well as a noun, right? We living in Ethiopia, I used to kind of take kids, they're on the street and they'll sell like gum, the plumbing situations is a situation there. So, they'll sell tissue and cigarettes, and then they'll be in school. So I used to take these kids and, ask them what they need to get back in school. And it's like, well, we need to make this amount of money a day, which is nothing, like $5 a day. Sorry about that. About $5 a day. And so I was like, okay, I'll help you with that. And then they'll take me to their home. And then I realized that they need $5 a day to get to school, but their parents need $20 a day for them to survive. And if the household is not stable, these kids won't be stable in their education. So we had to not only adopt the kids, we had to adopt the whole family. And so when we got to Leimert Park, we kind of took that insight and we saw the community, blight at the time. I don't know what happened before me. I heard some stories, but we decided we had to get away from our business plan and what we think we should give the community. And what community also is to me is be able to listen and, like Stick says, come up with answers to the problems, and it takes a community to do that. And so, we figured that we won't be successful as a business until the community is successful. So what we did is invested into the community outside our doors, endless amount of time, money, and resources to build the people within the community, to build a strong community that can support each other. So, in so many words, the definition is broad, but the actions are endless and needs to be consistent to create a strong community.
I love that. That was really good. One of the things that you said that I think was really important too is that you said you had to get rid of your business plan and tap in and listen to what the community actually needed. And I think that's something that's at the core of community engagement, is realizing that you can come in with a plan, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if that's not what is actually there and what's actually needed. So I definitely appreciate that story. Sticks, what about you? How would you define the word community?
I'm gonna say two things. First thing is, if we look at the word community, if everybody just stare at the screen and just look at the letters in the word community, if you and I come together, then we all could say thank you. Like that's how the T and Y is a thank you for coming together, and the U and I means us all coming together. So it's interesting how powerful words are. They tell us what needs to happen in order to see solutions. The second thing I want to say is Malcolm X, rest in peace, the beloved. He had a saying, he had a quote, and he said, in the word illness, so follow me, y'all, in the word illness, if you remove I and add we, it spells wellness. So basically what that's saying, again, if we want to heal our communities, if we want to heal our environment, we have to come together and make it less about I. And like how Tony said, he had to see what the community wanted. It's not about what he wanted. That's the I. It's about the we. He cured the illness and made it wellness by coming together and identifying what the problems are to identify and to provide the solutions. So community is togetherness. It's coming together, losing more of the I mentality and adding more of the we. That is the community. That is what a community is.
I love that. And I mean, it's not surprising that we have the wordsmith on here being able to break down these words into a very poetic way. I mean, if we had some time, I might have asked you to dry hop a freestyle real quick. But
That's real expensive, man. You asking for stuff that's too expensive, man.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. So instead, everyone can just please go check out Styx' music for real, so you can hear that out. But no, thank you both for that. I think it's really important to understand community engagement. You need to understand what community is first and what all comes with that. And as you both really put so eloquently, it's not just a word. It is, you have to think of it as a people. You have to think of it as an action. And so I think that's really important. And thank you all that are adding things to the word cloud here. We're seeing a lot of great words. A place to come home to, shared values, interaction, interdependence, resources, a place that evolves, eclectic and diverse, concentric circles, common struggles, collective consciousness, collective growth, group of support and care. There's a lot of really great words and thoughts here. And I love seeing that people are starting to take a step back and realize what that word actually means to them, because as Tony mentioned, it is a word that is used a lot. And so we have to really understand what the importance is. So thank you all for that. So as we move on to the next one, and just for some logistics on Menti, whenever I move to another slide, if yours doesn't move along with it, there should be a button at the top, whether you're on your phone or on your computer, that says go to current slide. So if you haven't answered yet, it might not move concurrently with it. So you can keep up, but feel free to still put some answers into this one as I move forward. All right, so this next one is going to be really awesome to see the words pop up. And then we're going to start with Styx on this one. And what type of communities do you participate? So this one is a question that may not be something that's on the surface. So of course, you may think of community as a place. So that may be Watts, that may be Leimert Park. But as we see a lot of great ones popping up here, what other communities do you identify with? So that may be the entertainment community. It may be having something to do with your culture, your ethnicity. It may be having to do with your children or your family. So we just want to kind of get an idea of who you both are outside of the work that you specifically do, and what communities do you kind of attach yourself to. So we're going to start with you, Styx.
Wait, is everybody here today typing those in? They're popping up?
Yep, right now at this moment.
That's so dope. I'm about to steal some of y'all's. Definitely Black community. Because of everyone here, I'm a part of the architecture community. Some right off the top, entertainment community, underserved community, low income community. I am a part of, I'm a part of the brown community, meaning Hispanic, because we're all tied in together. Music community, education community. I do a lot with schools, students. What else? The political community. I know a lot of politicians to try to push them to stop doing dumb shit and change policy and different things like that. I'm a part of probably every community that everybody's throwing up there. I'm probably a part of all of them, man. Because I either support, assist, educate people on all of these communities. Man, is I could keep going, but I love everything I name is off the top of my head. And that's a good one. It's a good question.
No, that was a good answer. I know this is a fun one to be able to get an idea of who is in the audience and exactly where they're connected with. And a lot of the times, as community activists, I know you get attached to where the community physically is that you're part of, but it is nice to kind of hear what other parts of the community you identify with. So Tony, what about yourself?
Man, I don't want to echo everything Stick said.
That's all right.
But I do. I think, that is a good question, Sticks. And I've noticed that, family, my immediate family and extended family has become more part of my community. Me, I'm just a workaholic. And so, but I'm also, a servant, I'm a God guy. And, the time in my life where, I didn't, I made so many decisions that, I didn't care for myself and, I didn't want to be around here. But, what inspired me was like, before I leave this earth, I wanted to help one individual. And, since I took that on, I think my community is endless, because anybody that God brings me to, or to me, I see how I can serve them. And as a servant, your community is expansive, because we as human beings, we all have issues and we all need help. And, there's always somebody there to help you. So, I keep myself open to be able to be of assistance to humans of all types, to be able to unite and find a common core. That's one thing that kind of took me away from, the blatant racism that does exist. I told that keep my heart clean. I tell myself that we're all humans. We all got the same heart, brains, and kidneys, and there's a connection between us all, and it's my goal to find it. So my community is expansive, or whatever today's brings. I don't know, when I step outside, a bird might pop up and start talking to me. I'm in the bird community right now. What's good? You want some bread? So that's where I am with it. And I love that so many people are contributing to this cloud right now.
That's fire.
Yeah, no, this one is really awesome. And so how the cloud works is the words that are bigger, that means that more people put that exact word, but it's really awesome to see the smaller words around it, because you're seeing how many different types of communities. And of course, there are some overlaps. And this being our architecture and design conference, not surprised that our architecture is the biggest word, but this is a really beautiful picture that's being painted, and it's changing at the moment. And as much as I'd love to sit here and watch it continue to change, you all can continue to put some words on there, but we're going to hop over to the next one. But it's really awesome to see all of the communities that are represented right now. It's amazing to see. All right, let's see. So as we move on to the next one, this question here is, what do you think makes a strong community? And so I know what both of you do. A very simple purpose behind what you all do is to try to make the community stronger in all of the different ways that you do. So what do you actually consider being a strong community, and what are those foundational pieces? I'll actually let either the one of you that has a first thought on this jump in. And again, we're getting a lot of great words.
No, yeah. To make a community strong, man, it takes leadership. It takes education in many different areas. Education, just, you have to know the streets. That's the most important. And knowing the streets is knowing the people. Knowing the people is knowing the needs. Knowing the needs is being able to identify what the solutions are, right? It takes a little bit of aggression, because there are systems in place that won't allow you to just truly build a strong community. There's a lot of systemic practices, racism, prejudice that exist today that won't allow certain communities to be strong. So it takes true leadership in a selected group of individuals who have the will and the power to fight through the resistance of what those systemic practices are, right? It takes togetherness. It takes being in sync, moving at one sound, as they say in that movie Drumline, one sound, one band. It has to move in sync. The community also needs support financially, but more importantly, it needs the resiliency of the people. It takes strength. It takes, I like the word trust and empathy and compassion. You know, you definitely have to be sensitive to the needs of others. You know, there's a book that I was reading called, and it was talking about divine masculinity and femininity. And each human being has both. So it takes balance. That's the word I'm looking for. It takes balance to understand both sides and to be able to apply both in order to execute what's really needed to develop a strong community.
That's a great one. Balance. I've never thought of that word thinking about community, but it really is important, because like what we saw in the last word cloud we did, there's so many different identities and communities that are involved in any specific space. Being able to have a balance that everyone feels like they're represented, that their voice is heard, is really important. So yeah, balance is a great word. So what about yourself, Tony?
Yeah, you know, Stick said it a couple of times about, you know, the proper leadership, and, you know, and that's so important. And also, you know, being able to follow too as well. You know, and, you know, I believe what makes a strong community is, you know, really having an understanding outside yourself, to really kind of embrace, you know, the needs and the dynamic of the individuals within your community, and totally listening and communicating and asking questions. You know, I really believe that, you know, it takes human beings to really sit down and not put their expectations on what community should look like, or what how a person should be within the community. But I really think it takes the ability for people to come together and look at the target of the community, and then together try to reach that target. And at the same time, that community have to be empathetic and have to be understanding to the traumas that each individual had. And some traumas may be lighter than others. And if you can't really understand something that someone else is going through as you're trying to build this community, you know, you can't leave that person or people behind because your traumas are lighter, because you don't understand their traumas. You can't, because if these individuals are within your community, you know, we have to build everybody up at their own pace. And I believe that typically, you know, sometimes leadership comes in with an agenda, and that being agenda, and if you can't catch up, you know, that's where controversy kind of comes. So really, like, understanding each other where we are, and then building each other from that point, and being patient with each other until we build or grow, helps these individuals create that strong community. We're in it together. You know, it's, you know, I tell, you know, Black people, when we support each other, whether in business or resources, you know, I try to end it with, like, we all we got. And I kind of really mean that. And until we can embrace that, you know, when we embrace that, I think these communities communities that we're in will be much stronger. no matter if it's through race, it can be work, it can be any other community. If you realize we're all we got and we lean on each other and we love each other and we respect each other and we're willing to grow each other and be patient with each other, that will lead to stronger people creating a strong community, in my eyes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the foundation has to start from within. It can't be something that's added on the end. And so it's really important to do that. And there's a lot of great thoughts and ideas that people are putting up here. Some of the most common words that are being thrown up there is communication, trust, empathy, support, understanding, listening. And there's a lot of really good ones that other people are putting off: multi-generational support systems, authenticity, flexibility, good leadership, vulnerability. These are all really great ones. And as a business owner myself in the space of community engagement and design in the built environment, trust me, I am taking as many notes as possible here from what you both are saying and what everyone is having here, because that is the purpose of what we're doing here, is to be able to figure out what can make these communities stronger. And it's an ever-changing task, and it shouldn't be the same thoughts and ideas that were there 50 years ago. It shouldn't be the same thoughts and ideas that may be there yesterday, because things are changing, but it's important to be able to build that foundation. So thank you both, and thank you all for what you're adding to this conversation. All right, we're making great time here. We're gonna move along to this next one. And so now we're gonna attach the word engagement to it. I thought it was really important for us to understand what community means to each one of us. But now one of the main purposes of this conference and one of the main purposes of this panel is the engagement you do. So what does community engagement mean to you as a whole? And then again, whoever has a thought on this can jump in first, as we start to see a lot of really great words and ideas popping up already.
You can go first, T.
You took the last two strong. I was following your lead though. You was giving me ideas. I'll take this one. An engagement. Hey, look, there's ideas and intention, and intention is everything, right? A bad doctor who doesn't really care, he's going to have bad results when it comes to his patients. But a good doctor who, with a good heart and good intention, he's going to do what it takes to help his patients. And I feel as though the good doctor with good intentions will have a better success rate than the bad doctor with any. So intention is everything, right? And so now it's like initiative. And if you say you're going to do it, you got to do it. If you say you're going to step up, you say you're going to commit, and you say you're going to attack the issues with your community, for your community, you have to then do it. And you really have to check in and see if you're capable of doing it, because it's just not a thought. It's an action, and it's a work and a path in front of you that there's really no turning back if you commit to it. Because once you do, and once one person commits, and then the next person commits, and this thing starts to morph itself, it's going to be a magnet of attraction for other people to commit. And it's going to take those who really believe in whatever the targets and the issues to be that light and attraction, to engage others, to become a part of and commit at their capacity. And everybody could, work in the middle of the night like others. Some people have a limited amount of time due to household responsibilities and work. But once you say you're going to do it, you have to do it. And because we rely on each other, and the engagement comes from more than one person. There needs to be tentacles within the community that's constantly engaging, where all people can't go, to kind of build this coalition, and that's what I believe it takes to when it comes to engagement, you know, with the community leaders into the community, and then from those who are in the community representing what, you know, the task is at hand. You know, they have to be willing to show up, show out, and not give up on the cause, because, you know, once you give up, then you never come to the solution. You never make, you know, substantial ground on what we're all trying to fight for as a community. So that's what I believe.
Love it. Really great answer. Really great answer.
Fire,
Sticks,
fire.
what about yourself?
Community engagement is everything, man. If you don't have the people, you don't have nothing. I can keep that short because Tony said a lot of dope shit, and everything is said in the cloud. You know what I mean? In music and TV and film and community and activism and and signing petitions and everything. If you don't have the people, if the people don't engage, shit on social media, they say you got it. What's your engagement? What's your engagement? Because when they want to know how many people really are paying attention to you. So community engagement is everything, and it takes understanding. Understanding is my favorite word. Understanding what the audience is, what the community is, what the people are, what do they want, what do they need. And you're not going to engage with everybody, but it's about finding that niche group that you engage with, you bringing that group together, cultivating that group, and then going after what it is that you want to produce from that engagement. So community engagement, man, it just takes an understanding to know how to engage with what you're trying to engage with. And remember, an engagement also means a marriage. Being engaged means married to something or about to be married to something. So when you engage, that means you're preparing to do something great.
Love it. That's awesome. And we definitely thank you both for those answers. And Sticks, we thank you too. I know being a man of the community, you have a lot of community initiatives going on right now at this moment. And I know you have to jump to another one very soon. But we have another representative from Think Watch who's going to be able to help answer a few more questions about specifically what you're doing. So if you don't mind introducing her as we move forward with this.
So I'm gonna bring up, she's one of the youngest of the organization. The next question, I'm actually gonna answer that to help her because she's gonna stress out if I do this to her. But Layla Malik, you know, born and raised in Sudan, very, very, very community related. She loves doing for others. She came around just out of nowhere and just became a humble member of the Think Watch team. And now she has a very high and important role in the organization with helping getting things together. So Layla Malik, welcome to she gonna kill me after this, but welcome.
Well,
everybody meet Layla. She make her feel
Layla.
at home. Don't make her nervous, y'all. She's cool.
No, yeah, Layla, thank you very, very much for this. And as you can see, we're all answering questions at the same time, so no pressure whatsoever. But if you two want on a tag team this answer before we move it over to Tony, this would be awesome. And I think this kind of goes right up your alley of what you're really involved in as well, Layla, with Think Watch. So what are some successful community engagement initiatives in your neighborhood that you all have been doing?
So hi,
I'll jump in right now. Just give me a quick. Sorry, everybody's calling me right now. Y'all just give me 3 seconds. Yeah, send it to me right now.
A man of the people, without a doubt, is making things happen.
Okay,
as we speak, so we love it.
Okay, let's go. Let's get to it. Sorry, y'all. It's crazy. It's crazy out here, but it's good, positive. So, initiatives in the neighborhood, in the community. I'm gonna let Layla just talk about our programming. I'm gonna jump off right after I give y'all this high level overview because my goal here is to blow everybody's head off, and I want everybody to lose their hair, a little bit of hair, and be like, and scratch and do like, oh my God, it's so crazy. But no, all positive energy. First of all, I want to thank everybody for listening to us talk. Tony is my man. Josh is my guy. All 100+ people that are here, you are amazing individuals, and you're going to be so great at everything you do, and you're going to be just fucking amazing. And I hope that we all 100+ people, we can figure out a way to work together and build a community and engage with each other so that we can produce solutions for many communities around the world. Now, ThinkWise Foundation, I'm gonna just give y'all the high level, and then I have to jump off, unfortunately. But high level, what we're doing, I want to talk about this big project that we're doing in Lancaster. The vision of the Lancaster project, and now you're like, Lancaster, why is it so far? Where the hell is Lancaster? There's a reason why I'm going so far, and you could pull it up on Google where Lancaster, California is. And gentrification is inevitable, right? Gentrification is something we cannot stop once we don't own the wealth in our communities. If we don't own anything in our communities, then the property value goes down, systemic practices kicks in, they kick the Black people out. After the Black people get kicked out, brown communities, Latinx communities move in. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with systemic practices towards Latinx and Black and brown communities as well in regards to immigration and allowing the dreamers to become actual citizens in America. So what happens is once the gentrification starts, Latinx community moves in. What happens is the new development comes because it's people who come in with their money and they tell everybody, hey, I'm going to give you this voucher to leave. But when you come back, you got to fill out an application with your social security number. Guess what happens? A lot of our brown community doesn't have a social security number because they're dreamers. Guess what happens? They leave and they can't come back. So guess what? The gentrification goes, it affects all of our communities across the board. So then now that's the baseline of why I'm about to tell y'all what we're doing. So because this is the inevitability, I ask myself, am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for my people? I'm doing this for my people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a place that hasn't been gentrified, that no one's thinking about, that no one's thinking about, and I'm going to go there and set up an ecosystem. What is this ecosystem? And Layla will touch on the programming that adds to this ecosystem, but I'm going to build a trade school. The trade school is going to be focused on hydrogen fueling, EV technicians, EV charging technicians, and construction. Why? Because I have a contract with the city manager and the mayor to help do the construction for all the developments that's happening in Lancaster. Now, along with that, we get to create careers that produce more than just a livable wage. Now, after we produce that career that produces more than just a livable wage, we then start the development of all of these projects, housing, buildings, hospitals, everything that a community needs, our people needs. We will then own the contracts and now start investing in the developments, the land, the buildings, and everything that we're building because we have enough money. And what goes along with that is the programming, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, all of these different things that are key to building a sustainable and successful community that the neighborhood can engage with. And I'm going to let Layla take it away from there because I got to jump now. I got to run to this other meeting. But thank y'all, everybody. I love y'all. Man, I left my information in there. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm out. All right, y'all.
All right, Sticks, have a good one. Thank you.
All
right, Layla, you are up, and like we see in the chat, you already have many fans supporting you and encouraging you on here. So if you want to touch a little bit more about what Sticks just left us with, and then we'll jump over to Tony about some successful community engagement initiatives they're doing at Hot and Cool.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. So just to add on to what Sticks said, so we organize like a range of programs and we partner with different, just other nonprofits and some corporations to provide these resources and these opportunities to the community. So, so some of these programs include financial literacy courses that we've been teaching. We also have some environmental related programs such as the installation of water boxes throughout the community so people can have, access to clean water. We also recently partnered with MasterCard, where we've been hosting a six-week program where we've been assisting small business owners in growing their business and developing their business. So this included, teaching them about their accounting, social media marketing, cybersecurity, and other things of that nature. We also do a lot of food distribution initiatives, some of which with the LA Dodgers Foundation. So a lot of our programs don't only focus on creating a short-term impact, but we also want to make a long-term impact on people's lives, which is kind of what Styx was talking about. We want to help put people in a position to, grow further in all realms of their lives, whether that's financially, mentally, health-wise. So yeah, these are just some of the many programs we facilitate, and we hope to continue to expand with that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. These are amazing things you all have going on. I'm very, very blessed to be a part of some of these initiatives alongside of the Styx, and I'm looking forward to the architecture community as a whole being able to dive a bit deeper into what you all are doing at Think Watts. So Tony, how about yourself? And as you answer this question, I'm going to actually make live this one here, which are Q&A questions. As we wrap up, people can start putting in Q&A questions, and whichever ones we have a chance to get into, we'll wrap up with those. But Tony, what about yourself and some things that Hot and Cool is doing?
So yeah, we've when I caught wind, in passing about the initiative to release, tens of thousands of prisoners throughout LA County. We then I kind of thought a little bit further, and it was kind of looking at the resources for these returning citizens. And, so we wanted to create a workforce development program for these returning citizens. We saw that, a lot of, there's many levels that these individuals have to go through as they come back into society. And first is like the, reuniting with yourself into a community that you haven't been into for a while. And then, you need a job. And so, I started talking to some friends of ours who were previously incarcerated, and seeing the stories of coming home and need your birth certificate. And he said he'll call his mom, and his mom would be like, I don't know, son, you may have to go to DC. He was like, Mama, I'm in LA and I just got home. I'm gonna go to DC to get my birth certificate. And hearing that story, it was like, how is this individual supposed to start his life and re-engage into society and become a strong community member, tax-paying citizen? So we, it kind of inspired me to go into that field and kind of work with organizations that helping individuals re-enter, and then we're going to attempt to provide a workforce development initiative, and it's of course through coffee. So we're working on creating coffee carts where these individuals can come in once they got their bearings and kind of settled in. That we're going to do like a 3 to 4 week coffee academy and teach them the art of barista. We're going to also, customer service, hospitality. And then from there, we're going to give them our own certificate of appreciation and completion, where they can go to any Starbucks and hopefully get a job. And there they could, they can go to school for free and get insurance. But if they want to stay with us, we're going to put them on coffee carts. And we want to kind of place these coffee carts throughout LA, Hot and Cool carts. And we want to give jobs that way. We want to give them jobs because, most of the jobs that, these individuals have when they come out are labor intensive custodial, or working in a Chick-fil-A next to a high schooler, and it doesn't build hope. It doesn't build hope for the future when you have these low-end jobs. So we want to bring these carts to the streets so they can be independently themselves and tell this story to individuals that come into them, establishing a community through coffee on the streets of LA through these individuals who are here trying to take advantage of their second chance. And so it's a little twist. So we're gonna offer these individuals the opportunity to own the coffee carts as well. A social equity entrepreneur program, where we'll finance the carts and they'll go through a second round of training on how to be a business owner, going through accounting and inventory and stuff like that. So we're hoping to launch this year. We're about to go through our first cohort and get our first carts. We want to, hopefully we can build this out to create a hopeful mentality to individuals, because once you have hope, you can do anything. The self-confidence starts to build. So hot and cool carts, hopefully you'll be seeing on the streets of LA soon.
Love it. That is amazing. And as we dive into this next question here, I know some people in the chat as well mentioned it. We definitely want to make sure we don't let the panel go by without letting you all know that you definitely have to stop by Hot and Cool Cafe. I mean, it's the coffee speaks for itself. But being a meat eater myself, I would say that vegan breakfast burrito is amazing, and I love meat. So this is coming from someone who doesn't normally eat vegan eats myself. So it's amazing. So if you're ever out in Leimert Park over on Degnan, or you have a location up in Canoga as well, right?
Yes, in Woodland Hills.
Awesome. But yeah, so as we're on that topic of how we can try out the great things at Hot and Cool, one question that's here, which I'm sure is one that everyone shares a thought in, is what are your thoughts on how we as the local architecture industry can better be community members? So whether that be specifically getting involved with the CARTS initiatives that are coming up, or Layla, whether that's specifically getting involved with any of the initiatives that Think Watts Foundation is having. So we'll start with you again on this one, Tony. How you think us as this community can be helpful?
Everybody has their own lives, especially in today's climate in 2022, and adjusting themselves through the world of COVID. So, we understand that people are just really trying to maintain themselves, which you are supposed to. And everybody doesn't have the capacity to overextend themselves. And so, I suggest, going by, what is my religion, which is something is better than nothing. Anything you could do, if it comes to your mind that you have the capacity to do, I think you should take the initiative to just do it. I pick up pennies every day because they add up to dollars. So, number one, what you can do for free is always kind of tap in to the organizations that align with your moral compass and that you want to see work, and just share the word within your network. I mean, that's free, and you can do it from your seat at your computer. Just starting with the little things that you can do, using your social media personal platforms to talk about these initiatives to make people aware is great. Checking in on newsletters and just keeping an eye on it. Not everybody don't have the capacity to go all in, but if you see something where you can contribute or make a connection, that all works, that all helps. these organizations like Think Watts and, Hot and Cool Carts is a separate nonprofit initiative. They, any financial assistance, help, and not even necessarily from your own pocket, but if you know someone or know a corporation or company that wants to contribute to organizations like we have to make a difference in community, just connecting, networking, giving us networking your Rolodex to some of these initiatives. All these things are important and go a long way. So, I know you can tell yourself like, I want to do something, but I don't have the time. But, as you're scrolling through, even social media, just sharing, a story or, of something that aligns with your moral compass can go so far.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Layla, do you have any thoughts on how the architecture industry, or just us as citizens here in Los Angeles at all can be a part of what you're doing at Think Watts?
For sure. So just to echo some of what Tony said, just general support, with our programming, like kind of spreading the word, raising awareness. So with that, obviously that will drive more traffic, and then we'll be able to help more people and impact more lives. And then, so that's in a general sense, but then more specifically, right now we don't have like a headquarters. So we've been operating from different, areas throughout LA, but we've still been able to expand. But the goal right now is to, have our own space so we can further expand our reach as well. So yeah, just kind of support with that as well would be useful. And like Tony said, obviously any, level of support is helpful and is greatly appreciated.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, with a lot of the work that I know Think Watch is going to be doing in the development and construction space, we're definitely going to be reaching back out to our AIA and No Home community out here as well as that begins to happen, because there's going to be a lot of great things going. So definitely keep an eye out on that. That's a plug that Sticks told me I need to make sure that however we get hit out there, as I'm helping them along the way with this development process. So definitely want to make sure you all check out both of these their websites. They have a lot of information there. Layla, if you can drop the information for Think Watts in there. And I saw that there was already the Hot and Cool website was dropped in the chat as well too. So that was really helpful. Thank you. And as we wrap up, there is one final question we got in the Q&A, which I think is a really important question. And we want to understand here, this person who asked is, what does allyship mean to you? And how can people of all color form a successful allyship together? And I'm assuming in this idea of community and engagement specifically, since both of what you are doing as your organizations are focusing on neighborhoods of color. So Layla, don't want to put you on the spot to go first, but if you have a thought, feel free to. And if not, Tony, you can get it started.
Yeah, for sure. I have a few thoughts on this.
Awesome.
So to me, it's, I'm a firm believer in just, being compassionate and genuinely listening to other people. And, even if you do share like somewhat of a similar background with someone, you still do have differences in your experiences and, differences in your ideas. So I'm a firm believer in synergy and like, just taking different ideas, putting them together and creating something bigger. So I think if we just, go into it with that common understanding, we can create something bigger, and we can do that together.
Great answer. Thank you. Tony, what about yourself?
Like I kind of mentioned, before in the last question, it's like, when you see an initiative or group dedicating their life to make another group of people better, and it taps into your moral compass, and you are attracted to what they're doing, and the results, just don't watch. Like jump in, right? And jump in and contribute, and knowing that your contribution and will truly make a difference, and you'll be a part of that success story. Because it's not just for Think Watts. Think Watts is doing this for the greater good and the greater community. And these organizations allow, ordinary people to contribute at their capacity, and they can become a part of these initiatives. And they can say that, the success from these programs is now part of me. And so take advantage of that and not just let it pass you by. Because again, ending as a God guy, the person said that, you can see the one seed that plants the tree of an apple, but you don't see all the seeds that grows in the apples from that tree. And I'm saying, like, just contributing a little bit to these organizations can not only fulfill you, the people that you help, but I believe that it positions you better in life as an individual. Walking on this, I don't want to get too deep, but this timeline that we're on, you can actually say that, hey, on this timeline, I'm able to help another human being with my resources. And so just doing it and making a point to be putting it a part of your life as much as you can handle will allow people of all color to form a successful allyship.
I love it. I love it. Very two stellar answers by both of you all. With stellar timing as well as we are wrapping this up, so we can move on with this great conference and the other panel that we have to wrap up with today. But we definitely want to take a time to thank you both. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Layla, for stepping in. You could yell at Sticks later for putting you on the spot, but you did an amazing job. And thank you as well to the Sticks for being able to kick it off. But you all are doing amazing work in the community, and you're really doing work that we all in this built environment, we all in this architectural and design industry really can take a look at and understand how we can be better partners with the community, how we can be better community members. And we're really looking forward to being able to move this forward so that community is an action word and not just a word we just see and look at and talk about in passing. So thank you. We're really appreciative for the attendees for being involved. It was great to see a lot of great words and thoughts and ideas coming up. And we're looking forward to a great remaining Encompass conference. So I'll pass it back along to one of our Encompass team members to close this out for us.
Real quick, Josh,
Yeah.
In the spirit of Sticks, we are building an academy
Yes.
for this coffee program. And so we can use all the architect love that we can get.
Awesome. I will definitely personally follow up with you after this, Tony, and make sure you are plugged into anyone and everyone that's willing to lend their expertise.
Thank you.
All right.
What a fantastic panel that we just had together with Joshua. It's my pleasure now to introduce our next moderator, Lance Collins, AIA and NOMA, and the Director of Partner Energy. Lance is the past president of SoCal NOMA and is somebody that has dedicated hours, years and days, weeks, decades to the issues that we're talking about today. Lance Collins, I welcome you to the program and thank you for leading the next discussion.
Great, thank you, Will, for having me. I appreciate the hours, weeks, and days. Thank you very much for that. It's my pleasure to be here today for the Encompass conference and get to share, this discussion with everybody that's attending today. I think we're going to have hopefully a lot of good insight about what community engagement looks like, kind of from starting from an inward looking view with a lot of the partnerships that SoCal NOMA has been working on over a number of years and are still continuing to work on, and then how that sort of kind of radiates out into the larger community engagement space as well too. So I think we have a great group of people to kind of talk and share some of their experiences, a lot of stuff that's going on here in the local community. We have Janice Williams, who's the Executive Director of Leader Flow, also a SoCal NOMA member and project coordinator at Rooted Group. Jose Sanchez, who's the mixed use leader and California regional design leader at DLR Group, and Hernan Diaz Alonso, who's the director at SciArc, who are all gonna kind of talk about different initiatives and different things that we've been working on, with the chapter and partnerships with all these different organizations, like I said, over the past few years. So if I can, let's see, I'm gonna start by sharing my screen for a couple of slides here. And let me see. Okay. And then we can go from there. So the thesis of what we want to talk about today is really about creating an infrastructure of initiatives to support not only sort of professional development and growth and diversity and inclusion, but also, as I said, sort of engaging back into the community, both the architecture profession community, but also the larger community as a whole. And so the thesis of what we want to talk about is really this. And so I kind of wrote a statement, which is to say, the challenge of making architecture more just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive needs to be looked at as a multiple variable equation. You can't just solve this issue thinking about only recruitment or only hiring or any one singular strategy. And so what we've done is created partnerships with a number of organizations here, SciArc, KPFF, and Leader Flow, and DLR Group, amongst the other 28 firms that are part of the DEI Challenge, to really help us engage and support diverse professionals at all levels. A lot of times we talk about, how do we get more people exposed to the profession of architecture, and that's super critical, but it's also about the continuum of everything that goes on throughout the rest of their careers, whether you're 18 years old or 68 years old. And so we want to make sure we're, building this infrastructure around people. And so, the partnerships we've created, with SciArc that Hernan's going to talk about, looking at removing some of the financial barriers and sort of providing wraparound services for a lot of students, with KPFF and Leader Flow developing, providing leadership development training, and then, the DEI Challenge and DLR Group's role as one of the inaugural participants in that, to really, strategize an individual firm performance and what that can mean going forward. So I'm going to let everybody else introduce themselves a little bit more in a second here, but I wanted just to kind of, for everybody's reference, set the table on what each of the three different initiatives are that, we're talking about here. So as I mentioned, the partnership that SoCal NOMA started with SciArc includes a number of things, and Hernan is going to, I'm sure, talk about all of these, but, scholarships to really, remove some of the financial barriers for kids who want to go to architecture school, to allow them to do that. Scholarships for students to participate in the summer programs, starting a NOMA student chapter, faculty hiring, hiring a director of diversity, equity, inclusion, and then also from a content and curriculum perspective, the Black Lives Matter Week of Action that they've been doing for a couple of years now. So these are all, elements of this initiative with SciArc that have been fantastic. From the leadership development program, we're now running this for our second year, and it's really focused on a number of different items that we work with sort of a small group of members, helping them learn about, building trust and becoming a trusted advisor, total leadership and work-life integration, emotional intelligence, crucial conversations, project leadership, client development, financial aspects of project and practice leadership, and firm and practice leadership. And then finally, the DEI challenge is, I think I've talked about this probably multiple times in the past, but, figuring out ways for firms to partner with minority-owned architecture firms, to build diverse project teams, to provide paid internships for HBCU and underrepresented local students, recruitment, career advancement, mentorship programs, diversity training, representation, pro bono services and underrepresented communities, and partnering with SoCalNOMA on all of our chapter initiatives. So that's just to kind of set the table, let everybody else, like I said, sort of introduce themselves and talk a little bit more about that in a second. The goal of everything we're doing from this, from all these initiatives, is really to prepare all of us, and that includes our NOMA chapter, to be more engaged, not only in the architecture community, but also in the community at large. And I was thinking about a question that came up at the end of the previous panel discussion about, being a better ally. And this is something that, we've talked a lot about with this group internally and, other conversations. And you'll hear me say it a number of times today, and I say it all the time, I actually prefer the word partner rather than ally. To me, an ally means I'm on your side, I support you. A partner means, hey, I'm here to do the work with you. And that's what we're talking about specifically here today, and sort of what I think, our vision of the chapter has been, is we want partners to come and do the work with us. It's not enough just to say we support you, we're on your side while you do the work, but I want everybody to partner and do the work with us. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to I'm going to turn it over to Hernan Diaz-Alonso first to introduce himself and talk a little bit about what is going on over at SciArc.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. It's great to see Carmen again. I can't believe it has been that long, Carmen, already. She was among the first students I remember when I joined SciArc. So, as Lance said, sorry, I'm Hernan Diaz-Alonso. I'm the director of SciArc, Argentinian by birth, Angelino by choice, to a point. So I've been in SciArc for 21 years. I've been the director for the last 6 years and change. So I just want to give you a little bit of context for how we started with all the thing, like everybody else during the pandemic and the horrible events of the assassination of George Floyd and the protests. Like everybody else, I think it was a massive wake-up call for all to understand how little we were doing, how we were not doing enough, how complacent we were. So I think it's important to start from that, because I think part of the conversation is going to be the challenge moving forward. And the challenge, as we know, is to keep the momentum going and to keep the fire burning. So we were lucky enough that already we were in good partnership and doing things with SoCalNOMA. And Lance and Leatrice were great facilitators for that. But when we start to take a series of aggressive and fast action, one of the virtues of being independent school of architecture, not being part of a big university, is that we can do things faster. We can just put things in motion. We can find a way financially to make it work, ask for our board of trustees for approval, and we can do it. So one of the first things that we did was to reach out once again to SoCalNOMA and says, okay, we want to create a multi-year partnership with you, so to help us and to guide us through this process. And that includes, as Lance said, a series of scholarships that we work closely with SoCalNOMA in selecting candidates for all the programs. SciArc has undergrad, grad, and postgrad. In addition to that, we also created a different pool of money. We add money to the scholarship, what we call diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarship, but those tend to focus with potential students with financial needs. The one with the SoCalNOMA scholarship is a combination. It's also merit and excellence. As Lance remember, Leatrice always is very vocal about that, and we work with them to achieve that, to create a sense of leadership, and also we want those students to commit to work with the NOMA S chapter that the school finally established. And this was something that we wanted to do for a long time, but they needed to have students invested in it, and we have that now. But we wanted to partner with SoCalNOMA because we really wanted to focus in our region. We wanted to focus in Southern California. It's such a diverse place. And one of the goals was simple, to say SciArc should look more like the place that it is. It should be very simple. So we felt that partner with the local chapter was the right move to do. That being said, we have making a meaning, which is one of our summer programs. It's for people who are already in college level, and it's run by William Virgil, and he's been working with NOMA at the national level to establish a scholarship for that for people who are interested to be in joining the world of architecture. We also have another summer program, which is called J.E.D.I, Design Immersive Days, which is for high school students. And also for that one, we have almost more than half are scholarship based. And this is something that, again, we see it and we hope with all of you and many others that we can develop a network of partnerships to keep talking and reaching out to high school. One of the things that we learned through this process is you can have certain money available, you can add those factors, but if you don't have an audience, if you don't have a group of people and communities that can reach out and talk to the parents, particularly with high school kids that will go in undergrad, is still a challenge to go ahead. I'm happy to say that when we put this series in motion in the last 2 years, we've managed to. Last year, we awarded 15 scholarships to students from different different minority groups, and they're all. I'm happy to report they're all doing fantastic, and these are full ride scholarships, and we support them all the way. In that process, also we hire our first director of the diversity with inclusion. Her name is Saida Sherman, and she's extraordinary. And on top of all that, she has put in motion mentorship programs from students to students, faculty to faculty, faculty to students. They has been very good to monitor, because as we know, and I think Lance point to that, again, you can provide a scholarship, but you have to guide and help them along the way. And we know that this is crucial for them too. And imagine also in the context of the last 2 years in pandemic, some of these people started online. So there was a high level of isolation. So we all needed to work hard to figure it out how to navigate that. We also we use as I always said, every crisis is an opportunity. We use the opportunity to hire full faculty, full 5-time faculty, 5 African American Black faculties, which are people that we wanted to hire, and we managed also to increase our number of faculty to reduce the amount of students per faculty, and they're extraordinary additions to the school, and they're changing the way that we look at things, the way that we think of things, how they participate, to reshape the curriculum, to reshape creativity, and how we understand and we study and discuss the history of race in America and many other topics that were way overdue in the culture of education and architecture. And the last thing in this list that Lance put together to suggest to start a conversation is our students organize every year a Black Lives Matter Week of Action, which is a whole week of conversation, discussion, symposium with architects, thinkers, people from all backgrounds. I mean, this is something that also we always love in SCI-Arc, to have people from multiple fields. And this is organized by the students. We support them, we help them, we create infrastructure with them, but it's self-organized by the student. And I have to say, in this process, the students and the student union, they're being fantastic. And the Fridays at 5, who used to be a place to gather and have a drink and relax, it has become this wonderful place of shared stories and cultures and different backgrounds. The school is half, or more or less half, are foreign students from 52 different countries. So these conversations about equity and inclusion is there in our context, goes way beyond the American situation. It's a much more conversation about different cultures, different backgrounds for different places, with different politics, with different issues. So we really are trying hard to, without losing whatever may SCI-Arc. I mean, everybody can have their opinions about that, but it's our goal to try to integrate how this discussion about equality and social justice can be integrated with speculative innovation, technology, and design, and how we can move forward with that. The last thing I will mention is we also hire a community outreach coordinator who's working close with all of us and trying to figure it out, how to reach out and to work with and partner with organizations. And we are in the process to work, for example, Leonard Park and many other options and opportunities, and start to use whatever capital we have within the city and the relation and the issue of homelessness, LA River, so on and so forth, and trying to integrate and see how we can break out. I don't wanna be here sounding like everything is tip top and everything is working perfectly or anything like that. These are long-term process. These are long-term goals. There are some short-term achievements, and we try to define in those terms what we can do right away, what it will take a little bit longer, but it will take much longer. I would say the main challenge is to keep the enthusiasm going for these issues and these causes. I don't want to sound overcritical, but it's fairly easy to put a like or appreciate on Instagram on social media. It's a whole other level to sustain the work and to get the things done and to understand reality and pragmatism and what it takes. So we are trying to do as much as we can, focus in that. As I said, that's one of the challenges, I think, is to keep everybody committed to that idea and to understand that being committed to that idea doesn't have to take away whatever else the school has been doing well for a long time. So people should not be afraid of change. Change is always good. So I'll stop here and looking forward to join the conversation as we move forward.
Great, thank you for that introduction. And it's obviously a lot that you guys are doing, and we're going to dig into a few of those items a little bit further as we get into it. Next, I'm going to go to Janice to let you introduce yourself and Leader Flow and the Leadership Development Program.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Definitely seeing some familiar faces and names on the call today. So a lot of you may know me through my longstanding involvement with SoCal NOMA and, my position or my previous board position as the executive secretary and my involvement with the Project Pipeline Planning Committee. And so I was just thinking here too, like some of you may be wondering what I've been up to since I left LA last summer and moved back to Houston. But, it's been a lot of exciting things and to still feel very connected to the chapter through some of these initiatives. So for one, I'm excited to announce that I am a project coordinator with Rooted Group, which is a strategic advisory firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. And we focus our efforts on helping organizational leadership really develop their strategies and their approaches for advancing racial equity and diversity. I'm also a part of the inaugural cohort for the SoCal NOMA Leadership Development Program, which started last year. And that was a partnership between KPFF and SoCal NOMA to really create this 7-session framework that would allow us to really explore some of these topics in areas of personal growth and leadership growth in the industry. And we're getting ready to kick off our second round of the program tomorrow, actually, with a new round of cohort participants that we're excited to meet and get started with for this year. And what came out of this initial sort of program idea with, really focused on advancing or accelerating the pipeline to leadership for diverse professionals in our industry, John Gavin, the CEO of KPFF, and I have joined forces to launch a new nonprofit organization, which will now house this leadership development program. And so we are definitely aiming and intending to stay partnered with NOMA as an organization, but we also want to tap into some other big organizations that are established within our industry. For example, NSBE, the National Black Contractors Association. And we're actually looking forward to replicating this program into more cities. And so I know we'll get into the details more later. But I'm really excited about all of this work coming full circle. One, because of just my commitment to NOMA and my own personal growth that I've experienced through my involvement with meeting a lot of my mentors and my friends and colleagues and associates through this organization. But now, just like you said, Hernan, really being committed to the work that needs to be done to help support and sustain and retain diverse talent in our industry. So thank you. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Okay, thank you, Janice. And Jose, I'm going to go to you next to introduce yourself and role on the DEI challenge and all of the above.
Great, thanks, Lance. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Good morning. My name is Jose Sanchez. I love seeing on that word bubble earlier, Long Beach being like the second biggest name on it. That's my hometown. If anybody knows anywhere from Long Beach, we represent really well. And I'm surprised that LBC wasn't like the next biggest word on there. But I went to USC, been practicing for, I'll leave it at 20 plus years. I've been at DLR Group for the last 6 years, the global mixed use design leader there, but also more recently have been chosen to co-lead our equity forum, which is focused on a lot of the items that are part of the DEI challenge. And so really focus on, it's been part of my focus as well in the last couple of years. As a firm, the DLR Group is very supportive of NOMA on the national and local level, especially their initiatives. We always feel that the SoCal NOMA Group is very trailblazers when it comes to initiatives that get adopted throughout the country. So really proud to be here in this part of my hometown and participating with SoCal NOMA. Also, I think for us, it was important to not only lend our support and being part of that inaugural group, but also to encourage others to participate, also providing a more accurate picture as possible to what it is, it's data collecting, so we can learn as much as we can about the equity status of architecture in Southern California. It's not an easy task here. There's a lot of different firms, a lot of different size firms, a lot of different types of organizations, and it's kind of hard to, we're not necessarily a complete unified group. And so kind of understanding what the different organizations and groups are and getting a clear picture of the status of where we are in our industry. But most of all, we wanted to create a more equitable industry and have the evidence-based data to back that up, and how we can illustrate the work that needs to be done and the work that we're doing and the movement that's happening there. Especially after the initial anger post George Floyd, we saw a lot of firms engage and involve in new initiatives. We want to maintain that. We also want to see the growth in that if it's really making an impact in Southern California. So each of the different categories of the challenge are really important aspects to that building of an equitable practice, how we engage the pipeline, as well as how we're connecting to our community. So we're really proud and happy to be part of that, and hope to continue being part of it for many years to come, but also hopefully growing that into a more national component as well.
Great, thank you, Jose. And so from here, we're going to go through kind of a number of different questions with the panel, but I'm also going to encourage anyone in the audience, if you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat, and we'll try to monitor that for the end as well. Or if you remember your question, you can raise your hand and we'll call you out at the very end as well too. So try to have this as just kind of a back and forth conversation, and definitely want everybody in the audience to be able to participate as well too. Where I wanted to start with the group is you guys have all touched on it in sort of introductions about, all these things that have started in the last, year, 2 years plus here, but I kind of want to get each of your personal take on sort of the impetus on getting involved in each of these initiatives, the DEI Challenge or Leadership Development Program or SciArc initiatives. All four of us have had offline conversations about why it was important to do these things, but I would like for each of you to share that. So actually, Jose, I'm going to start with you, since you kind of already led in with what you said from DLR Group's perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Lance. I think one key component, DLR Group is an employee-owned firm. We're formed as an ESOP, and so every 5 years we establish a vision for our future. And although in the past we had goals for developing EDI strategies, for our vision 2025, we set a core goal to build an EDI strategy to not only build upon this equitable workplace that we've been talking about, but also how we can impact our communities. And again, upon the tragic murder of George Floyd, many firms did mobilize on EDI initiatives. We did too as well. We had already had some in place, and just typical way these initiatives work out. Sometimes they're slow moving, and we fast tracked a lot of those. But when you do that too, you sometimes build momentum, and you're afraid that they're going to fall off as far as that initial kind of effort. And we wanted to create that sustained effort to it too. And so in order to pursue these long-term change solutions, we need to measure and trace these inequities through the systems and policies that created them. And the DEI Challenge does a really great job of that. So we looked upon that to kind of rely on, for our offices in Southern California, and we have an office in LA, Riverside, and San Diego. As a whole, we have 28 offices. So being focused being in the LA office, was able to focus using the DEI challenge to kind of really focus on Southern California, but then also using that as a measuring tool for the rest of the offices in our firm. So this allows us to explore where those inequities may exist within our own walls, especially in our industry too, and be able to take action and make positive and lasting impact to that. Again, the DEI challenge is it's a measuring tool. It's a data collector. It helps us communicate those challenges in the way that we work. It really, and it all does it in a way in how we do our own personal work, or how we approach projects through this kind of evidence-based practice. So until you see the numbers, until you see the impact, how do you convince, even within our own walls, how to make those changes? So for us, it kind of played hand in hand right at the right moment in time to really kind of grow what we were doing through our equity forum, through the work that we're doing in DLR Group, and especially in our communities too. Items such as connecting with consultants, or how do we hire, how we grow our project teams, all those elements all were in play into what we're discussing right now through our equity forum. And we were able to use those as measuring tools as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's great to hear. I think a lot of the conversations I've had with different individuals and firms over the past couple of years, everybody has a different reason, everybody has a different sense of urgency or things that are sort of their top priorities. So it's great to hear, certainly DLR Group and your own individual, passion about being involved with this at a high level. Hernan, you and I've had a number of conversations as well. And I think, at least from my perspective, you're in a very unique position as the head of SARC to be able to, implement things. A lot of things that, you and I talked about, I feel like could have taken, 5 years just to get off the ground, but they didn't. You just made it happen. And I'm really appreciative of that. And I think you could just maybe share sort of, your, some of those conversations we had and your impetus on, how we were able to get everything done so quickly.
Well, thank you for that. Look, there's no other way to think about it. Like you're in the presence of something like that, you see what happens. You see the people taking the streets, and at some moment you realize, hey, I'm in a position I can do something here. We're not going to be able to solve all the problems that we have. I mean, that should start way early, all the way down to kindergarten or whatever it is. We are in higher education, but we can do our part. And this is something that the school always did and can move fast. And usually that has been mobilized for other factors, usually with more, let's say, of culture, of innovation, and so on. But the same mechanisms were available to do this. And I knew for a fact that we will be able to do it fairly fast. I mean, as I said, we are not in university, so we don't have a tenure system, for example. So certain things with hire was much easier. And also, I have to say, there was a certain kind of expediency, because we knew that there were a series of interest in people that we wanted to hire. And I knew that because the circumstances that we were, it will facilitate that we can do that fast. And the same with the scholarships. I knew that I have a very great board that is very open-minded and very so I knew that we will go and said, hey, we need more money for this. We need more scholarship to this. We can do an impact. And again, we are part of Fabric of a City in a strange way, because as I said, the school has always been as international as its local. Actually, we don't have that many students from Southern California, believe it or not. It's very normal in America, as we know. Students tend to move away from where they grew up. But that's what we manage, as I said, like everybody else. I mean, we put in a statement at that time, but I knew that was not what it was needed. What it was needed is to quietly go and do the work and try to get to put the things in motion. And as I said, having Noma Sautal was a great support to do that. To be able to do that fast, but also there was a very extraordinary commitment and energy coming from the students and the faculty. So it was an easy. I would not say it was easy to do it. I think it was easy in terms of the emotion that it was coming to it. And I'm, for one, I believe, and I said this many times, architecture requires more than anything optimism. And I always thought that if we can make something positive after such tragic times, at least we can start building towards something better. Now we understand and we know fully aware that helping a group of students to come to the school is just a first step. And this implies a whole series of much more complex and long-term conversation that's going to take quite a while. And you and I, Lance, and I think with Jose and Janice the other day, we mentioned that too. It is also a very complex conversation about what is the role of architecture as a practice, as a profession, and also how family perceives that and how we find those students. He always, Tunde, which is one of the students involved in NOMAS, and he was an extraordinary leader in all these conversations. It always resonated to me when he said to me, I couldn't find anybody until I was 15 that I would tell them that I wanted to be an architect and they knew what I meant. And that resonated for me for a long time. The idea that what this is this extraordinary profession is something that is not in the radar of most people. And again, and we know that there are those students or those people who want that. And we try to do our little part. So I want to be very clear that there were other schools and other institutions, and I this shout out before. I think Woodbury was ahead of the curve in this, and there have been leaders in the region understanding this and doing extraordinary work. So for us, as I said, moving fast, it was available to us. It was available to us because also the school is in a good situation, and it was a good situation financial, even during the pandemic. And also, we have a faculty and staff and students and the board that they were committed. And so I would be lying if I would say, oh, it was a huge battle to get it going. No, it wasn't. It was really to go through the motions, to understand what was possible, being realistic too. And you and I, we talk about it, what can be done, what is possible. And I mean, whether we like it or not, still, even if non-profit institution, we are in a capitalist system, and there's a level of pragmatism that you need to make sure that you can sustain those commitments and you can sustain the well-being of the institution at large. But I have to say, I mean, it was a team effort, but as I said, it was not a Titanic battle or anything like that. We managed to do it very fast. I think the second and third and fourth and fifth phase, I think are going to be a little bit trickier. I think it's going to be a little bit more complex. I think put things in motion, I will not say it's easy, but sometimes it's easier to create a sustained change and how they think can contribute to a long-term evolution of things. It remains to be seen. And I'm cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, I'm worried. Because I'm worried about the state of the profession. It's not only about the issue of inclusion. I'm worried about the state of the profession. I'm worried about the state of the role of architecture, and it's in that context too as well. So,
no, I completely agree, and I don't want to kind of gloss over the fact how much being fast and being nimble is appreciated. I'm a huge believer, and sometimes you just got to show up and do the work. You could talk about everything, you can say what your intentions are, you can all these things, but you got to kind of put the actions in place, and everything can continue to evolve and grow and whatever over time. But if you kind of don't take that first step forward or whatever, then you're not going all the way there yet. So that definitely want to
absolutely
recognize that.
We understood that was crucial. That's why we wanted to be as swift and fast and big as we could be with it.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Janice, I'm gonna ask you the same question. And I think you're in a unique position from the perspective of starting off certainly on the SoCal NOMA board side from a leadership perspective, then also a participant in the leadership development program, and now leading the leadership development program going forward. So just kind of talk about your own impetus and story and how you got involved and sort of the value proposition from your end.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. My sort of personal connection to all of this really started with just my introduction to SoCal NOMA through the Project Pipeline summer camp. And I spent, so many hours and, years like working with young students to help really expose them to the industry. And, I didn't really make the connection initially that this really just stemmed out of my own like dedication to service and just really being involved with communities, and no matter where I am. But what I realized was what I was experiencing was like a lack of that same level of sort of commitment to my own career growth from mentors, like just within my own firms and respective organizations. And so, I think I really sort of like took hold of what that experience was like for me from a volunteer aspect of, right, it takes time to put together something like a summer camp and, really bring volunteers together to, expose these young students to this industry and let them know that this is available to them. But the question started to arise for me when I thought about, okay, well, what about, that sort of early to mid-level career point, right? When you're in those first few years of trying to work your way around and find your way around the industry and, what lane you want to be in, what type of projects you want to work on, like what does really that growth to leadership really look like? And I didn't really have too many opportunities for that. But the two opportunities that stood out to me where I really felt like there were people who, like we've all said on this panel, is committed to doing the work. This is outside of just our everyday, tasks that are related to projects and how we serve our clients, but really looking at committing to each other, right? And creating this sort of community and this culture within the industry to where we're uplifting one another. And the two opportunities that I was a part of, or that I was exposed to, was one, it was a training session that one of my former companies had put on by their leadership, completely volunteer. And that was the level of commitment that, one, I saw from them in my own career growth and my personal growth, but two, the commitment that we had as at the time I was a job captain and just wanting to learn more, right? And how do I advance my own career? Like how do I get that outside sort of exposure and experience with someone who's really helping to pour into me in that way? So that was one opportunity. And I was just like, done. Like this made so much sense to me. I needed to really like latch on to how we can, make more opportunities for that for people in this industry. And then the second one was, of course, this leadership development program. I mean, at the time for me, I was in a little bit of a transition, just trying to like navigate life and where I wanted to be and live and what I want to do next for my next chapter. And after 10 years in LA, I was just kind of ready for what's new. But when the leadership development program came up, I was just like, why not? This is a completely, sponsored event. Like I don't have to pay for this. This is not another sort of financial commitment that I'd have to find a way to work around to make happen for me. But once again, it was someone else who took the time out of their schedules to create this infrastructure and to create this plan so that they could continue to try to mentor other young professionals, especially within the minority community, for their own career growth. And so what came from that was like, all right, now how do we grow this, right? How do we expand this? How do we capture more of an audience in other places who may be looking for these same opportunities? And that's when John Gavin and I decided to launch LeaderFlow. And so we said, okay, if we could form these partnerships with NOMA on a national level, tap into the membership base in other cities, and also other organizations who, are providing career development and professional development opportunities for their membership, then that would be, sort of another way to kind of measure the impact, which is what we're all trying to do, right? We're really trying to make sort of the emphasis on, how are we tracking what all of these initiatives are doing, and how are we really measuring what that impact is going to look like on a global scale. So it was a very personal experience for me. And, it's interesting how things just end up kind of all unfolding at the same time, even when you least expect it, because, these things kind of come full circle. And I didn't even know that this was something that I would be doing if you would have asked me 5 years ago. So it's a very natural progression. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to touch and to reach more developing professionals in this industry through the leadership development program and through LeaderFlow.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm going to pause and make sure I give appropriate credit to John Gavin at KPFF for really developing the leadership development program with SoCal as an initiative that came out of KPFF to begin with. And we've kind of molded it and adapted it to, you know, some of the needs of SoCal members, and obviously going much larger than that now. So, you know, I really want to appreciate his efforts in there. He couldn't be with us here today, but I wanted to at least acknowledge him before I get too much further in here. You know, I think the next question I want to kind of go to you guys with is sort of challenges and opportunities that, you know, have come up along the way. As we've all kind of touched on, you know, taking that first step forward, having the passion and energy to do something is critical. But you know, we're all still learning. We're all still growing and evolving in this process, including us at the NOMA level. I don't think anybody is the expert. I always, you know, say to any group we're talking about, like, nobody's solved this problem yet. Nobody's won. We're still kind of in the beginning stages of how do we make things better. So I guess, Jose, I'm going to start with you. Just kind of, if you can share any challenges or opportunities or successes or anything that you guys have experienced either individually or as a firm, you know, going forward.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, the Group has 28 offices. A couple of those are international, but the birth of the company was in the Midwest. And so there's some systemic challenges there in building up industry and practice that lives within the histories of our industry. But there's assumptions there that LA is somehow this very diverse place that doesn't have these racial issues or doesn't have a diversity problem within the offices. And you can probably see the overall numbers and think like, oh, it's a balance in comparison to the rest of the country, the rest of some of our offices. But the data itself tells us something different. And that's something that we learned and lessons learned from the process itself. Yes, our emergent professionals are very diverse, and there's an incredible opportunity there for equitable growth within our profession. You know, we know that these folks are like the future of our industry, our future leaders. However, the current leadership mirrors most of the industry. It's mostly homogeneous. It's non-BIPOC. You know, we have developed promotion plans and opportunities for ascension for non-titled colleagues and associates, intersenior associate and principal opportunities. But the challenges is in how we engage the pipeline into our profession. You know, we assume like, well, let's just bring in diversity into our offices. Let's bring diversity into our profession. But, you know, how do you build a sense of belonging in our industry? You know, especially in an industry whose like history and systems are not friendly to a diverse and equitable practice. How do we create a safe environment? How do we minimize code switching that are required to navigate through the work that we do? And how do we elevate the voices that mirror the communities that we're designing for? I can say from a personal level, as a Latino, like it's a lonely world sometimes, right? Having come in through the practice, having to practice through and learning how to code switch through the system that in industry that we work with. And so aside from not seeing as many faces like my face, as much as not seeing other friends that I grew up with in the practice, you know, it makes it difficult, but also how do you elevate young professionals in the same systems and industries that I grew up in or grew up in professionally? We have to change that. And so again, the DI challenge allows an opportunity to look at that information and data and see the discrepancy there. I'm inspired by the work, like Hernan was saying, that's happening out of Woodbury, SciArc, USC, some of the local schools, because we have a lot of interns from those schools. We go into those universities and work with them and collaborate. And I was going to say bravery permit, that's probably not the right word, but just the energy, you know, of change, the energy of demand of like, this is not the way it's going to continue to be. For them, it's really inspiring. And we can use the information that we learned from the DEI challenge to move that energy ahead. And it doesn't have to be from a singular standpoint or looking for allyships or partnerships. It can be from that movement, swelling from below, and absolutely correct. It's more, it's representation matters. And we're seeing that happening as we grow our practice. One other challenge that I found too was we don't always talk the same language. You know, there's like the census language, there's the government language, there's the language that we use in our own practice. So when we're trying to come up with information and data, and I'm sure Lance, when we had those calls with multiple groups, we've found that a lot. And I don't know if we can get to that common language component. You know, we don't use the word terminology at DLR Group of DEI or EDI. We use just equity in its own. We believe that the diversity and inclusion comes from the work that you do within equity. And so, but not everybody talks in that same kind of like language too. And then even how, you know, representation, what does that mean? There are certain quote unquote white construct model minorities versus other minorities, and how those narratives are judged within our industries. There's also, you know, how do you label a person from a certain part of the world? You know, like, is Middle Eastern white? Is it its own group? Everybody has their own measuring tool. So it's really hard to kind of get the true facts of representation when it's all multiple ways of kind of measuring that, and nobody has like a common language to that. So we discovered that was a language, and probably kind of allowed some firms to have hesitancy in being involved. Because like I said, I think it's really important that we get a clear picture of the industry. And I think right now, in just 2 years in, we don't have that clear picture. Then we need to engage more of those firms, and maybe even separate, you know, the large firms between the small firms, because I think there's a big difference in that as well. We knew that as a firm, we probably would look good in the numbers because we have the numbers, meaning as a large firm, we have over 200 people within Southern California. So we can rack up points in that way. But like I said, looking deeply into the numbers, we can learn a lot from that as well.
Yeah, your point specifically about the language and terminology is a critical one. You know, as we were developing the DEI challenge, you know, we struggled with, I'll just say flatly, we struggled with a lot of those same issues as well too. Is it Black? Is it African American? You know, how do you classify everybody? When we talk about diversity, we talk about racial diversity, gender diversity, sexual identity, orientation. There's a vocabulary that none of us have mastered yet, that we're all still kind of working through to make sure everybody is represented. Everybody, like you said, has a sense of belonging in the industry. And, you know, as I said, when I go back to sort of the ally versus partner, you know, we want to be partners because we need to learn from you and all the other participating firms, all this type of input. It's not, here is a monolithic answer, you guys all go do that. We are partners. We are learning how to do these things together, how to solve some of these problems together. And so it's been, you know, really great to see how things have evolved. But, you know, certainly, you know, lots of things still to continue to improve on and learn about collectively as well too. So, Hernan, I'm going to ask you the same question as far as kind of some lessons learned from the first couple of years here, or challenges, or you know, success stories that you guys have seen.
Well, I think we keep learning every day, right? It's an ecology. It's a permanent alive thing, and as you said, nobody have figured it out. I think one of the main things is we should not be afraid of making mistakes. I think if your heart and your brain is in the right place and you're trying to move the ball in the right direction, there will be mistakes along the way, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. Because I think sometimes when you try to set up everything to get everything right, it paralyzes you, and I think that's a little bit part of the issue as well. And then I think, as I said, the success, I think it has been the people that become part of the culture and the family of the school, and they're doing remarkable things, and student faculty staff. So that there is a lot of success stories there. I think the mentorship program is also grown into something really fantastic, which I think it has a huge potential to keep expanding. I think we haven't had that much success. I think it's a challenge, and we're going to have to keep working hard on it. Is how we rechange curriculum about what we teach, what do we teach, how we keep expanding the palette of how people can think about it and find a ways. Also, when we talk about representation, it's not just about representation of who we are individually, but the representation of the culture that we feel part of it, and how you can bring that into the fold. And I think that there is a certain there is a long way to go there. I think, like everything else, when there are formulas that work, we tend to repeat them. So sometimes it doesn't come necessarily with malice or evil motivation. Sometimes it's just what you feel comfortable with when you know. So I think to keep doing that, I think that's going to require it's a longer conversation. But I think that also another, what I would say is a beautiful challenge is, and I think all of you talk about, I think the role of leadership and role models is crucial. Architecture, as much as it's changed and so on, I still think is highly aspirational. And I think students are still, I mean, even if it's changing, everybody's much more excited about collaborations and so on. But everybody always looking at somebody that they want to be like and so on. So I think the more than we have people in those positions, that they look very different, and we keep expanding the palette of options and how to channel that. I mentioned the other day in a private conversation when I was a student, it was not the same. It was not in the same context of representation that we're talking about, but it was more like a cultural representation. I was interested as a young student to do really work outside the convention what the school was teaching, and I was following. I mean, at that time, I'm talking about late 80s, early 90s, people like Zaha Hadid. I mean, they were emerging speculative architects that haven't built anything. And of course, I was under fire by my professors. And then Enrique Mirages, who at the time was in partner with Carme Pinov, Barcelona came, and him and Carme, they were doing incredibly strange, innovative work by using concrete, bricks, steel, thing that we have in Argentina. So when I saw that, I said, okay, I can do this. I can follow that. So to have that role model was crucial to set me my path. And if I didn't come across about these two architects, maybe I would surrender to the pressure of my teachers and so on. I should have been doing that. Now, if you translate that into whatever all the other issues that we're talking about in terms of representation, that to me remains a fundamental thing. That's why I think it's important to have these young architects, young faculty that come in with their background, with their culture, with their changes. It's fascinating, you know what I mean? Because when we look about the cultural design, we are influenced by all these cultures. We are influenced a lot by Black culture in America. And somehow we when it comes to architecture education or the Latino culture, the Latinx culture, we are influenced every day by all this, from food and many other things. So how we bring that into the fold of architecture education, I think it still is a challenge. And it's going to be a challenge for a while. I think, again, the financial component, it remains a challenge. American higher education is incredibly expensive. And we need to figure it out how we keep increasing that. And the notion of philanthropy and fundraising and so on is not enough. So there may have to be some other changes, more radical changes. And I don't know how those things can partner and so on. And I know that higher education is always under attack about the cost of it, and it's fair criticism, but at the same time, it's difficult to break away from the logic of the system. So I don't have the answer for that, unfortunately, and I think nobody has it, but it's a serious issue moving forward. And if we don't find a way to minimize that, or to help or support that, the struggle will continue in those fronts.
Yeah, you made two really important points in there amongst a lot of things, actually. But I think the two things you said that kind of piqued my ears a second there were, number one, about sort of not being afraid to fail. You know, I think architecture as a profession in general, we should be the most sort of acclimated to that, because that's part of the design process. Hey, I'm going to do 50 study models, and I'm going to sketch this, I'm going to crumple it up, and I'm going to try again. And you know, we could all attest to, you know, whatever the final, you know, building design, it is probably far from the initial sketch and option A, B, and C that we all started with. So when we talk about, changing, some of the policies and practices and all these different things from a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective, we can't be afraid to fail. We've got to try all these different iterations. We've got to just let it evolve. You can't, like you said, you can't be paralyzed by it. I'm gonna put that first line down on the paper and see what it is. Maybe it's not quite right. I'm gonna draw it again, and I'm gonna crumple that up and go again until you go. So that's kind of, I feel like as a profession, we should be accustomed to that as a way of working. So it should be applicable to anything else we want to do. So to me, that's super important. And then certainly from a representation, I know a lot of people are kind of saying in the chat as well too, representation is always critical. Your point about, one of your students who had not even, seen an architect till he was 15, we've all had various sort of, interactions with lack of representation at one point or another in our career. And I think, not only the representation getting, people exposed to the profession of architecture, but representation about what that career path can look like. Hey, I can become a manager, a principal, I can own my own firm, I can do all these different things. That level of representation needs to exist as well too, not just, hey, here's a profession I could choose, but what does it mean to have a career in this profession, going forward? So Janice, I'm going to kind of tie that into you from the leadership development program. Is intended to expand the access to those kinds of levels from a representation perspective. So just kind of, if you want to talk about any of the lessons learned that you've kind of gone through along the way, and any challenges and opportunities, et cetera.
Sure. Yeah, I think I can really speak to this from a couple of angles, because in our industry there's just such this culture of the demand for our time, being so work focused and client focused and project focused. And so it doesn't always leave room for things outside of that. And, there's almost like this, I don't want to say hesitancy, but maybe it is hesitancy to step outside of that because of what else it may require, right? Like we're trying to get attention on these other areas of mentorship and support and involvement. And quite frankly, we know that it requires work. It requires dedication. It requires time. It requires a commitment. And so for the leadership development program, one of the things that we realized within the first pilot program was we had our sessions broken up into weeknights and weekends. And it became just way too burdensome for everybody. It was a lot to ask of not only the participants, but also the facilitators, coming off from a full day of work and then being on a Zoom call for 2 hours when we were all virtual for 2021, and asking people to, be prepared to commit their time for homework and assignments and engagement, when you've already been on a Zoom call throughout work for the entire day. So that was one of the shifts that we needed to make, was like, all right, if we're going to go into it this year, let's really, put firms and firm leadership, to the table, bring them to the table and say, hey, if you're committed to advancing the careers and the growth, the leadership growth of some of your, your staff or the people that are working for you, and you see a trajectory for them in this lane, will you commit some paid time off for them to attend this leadership development program for one day during the week? So we've shifted our programs to a Friday. It's a day session on a Friday, where now they can already be prepared to schedule their time around this. It's 7 sessions, so that's one session a month. It's the investment from the firm's side to say, hey, we are committed to this. It's not really asking too much of them, able to work their schedules around this. But also it just kind of relieves that additional sort of burden of balancing other life commitments, right? For everyone, you can still fit it within your work week. We're not taking any of your Saturdays or your weekends or your weeknights to participate in this. So to me, that was just a lesson learned, from that initial sort of round of participation that we had in 2021. And we're testing it out for the 2022 session to see how well it works. But the other angle to this really, I think, is in overall sort of industry culture shift, just as it relates to kind of peeling the layers back to be able to be transparent about all of this, right? To share resources, to really be open to, receiving help in helping these organizations strategize, right? Because what everyone's EDI initiative is going to look different, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be this boilerplate response for all these organizations to add to their EDI or their diversity or their equity initiatives. This is really just about being transparent, being open, acknowledging that this is something that you're interested in doing and something that you want to commit to from an organizational leadership standpoint, and then being vulnerable enough so that we can really work together, share our resources, and learn lessons, because we're all learning from one another throughout this process. So the more that we can just kind of, create a space and a cultural shift in our industry to share those resources and to connect with one another on those more personal levels, I think that the further that we'll get, and the more that we'll be able to really advance the mission that we're all trying to work towards.
Thank you. I 100% agree that it's been, like I said, everything is still evolving. I kind of look at a lot of what we do from, the growth perspective, like we're all in this growth curve. It's okay for things to change, for them to evolve, to take in the feedback from all the participants, the students, the community at large, all these different things to figure out how we can continue to make everything better. Where I want to go next is sort of related to the sort of community component of everything that we're doing. And I guess, Jose, I'm going to start with you and just kind of talk a little bit about, how what you guys are doing at DLR Group has reached into the sort of community of architecture, but also the community at large in Southern California, and sort of, what you guys are doing, what you would like to do that you haven't done yet, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and some key components of the DEI challenge talk towards the community piece of it. One of them is, and something that we had developed previously, that again, it's equity by design is what we call it. It's a way of engaging BIPOC-owned sub-consultants as partners, and that includes your typical sub-consultants as architects we work with, engineering firms, as well as other disciplines like lighting design, landscape design, but also design firms too. And in doing that, equity by design is not only putting them on proposals, reaching out and having them be in proposals, but also providing resources as a larger firm to help them succeed. So whether it's a design firm that needs AOR services or needs additional design resources to go after that larger projects, we will elevate them up and be the primary and provide the resources as a secondary firm. At the same time, partnering in communities where we need boots on the ground, and purposely selecting firms that are BIPOC owned to be those consulting that we'll work with. So that's one key component and that's item 1 and 2 of the DEI challenge, is who do you partner with that are minority-owned businesses within the industry. And so one challenge that we did learn from that is that we don't necessarily track that really well. And so one thing is that we've adjusted and changed in the way we do things is actually tracking our engagement and involvement in that. And part of it was the development of this equity by design initiative. The other piece too is pipeline. A lot of some of the DEI challenges were based on hiring of BIPOC or from universities in underserved communities. And so one of the things is also assisting in that pipeline, not only in the hiring to our practice, but then getting students into those universities or going to the university, so give the opportunity for us to hire them. So one thing that we've also done is create some curriculum engagement with some of our school district client partners, allowing us to go into the classroom, help our teachers out by providing hopefully a ceiling of interest into architecture and engineering within those schools. They're the clients that we work with, the schools that we're designing, but this also allows us to be part of the curriculum building and adding STEAM into the curriculum and being one of those voices that can go into the classroom as well, whether it's through similar to the boot camps or also just regular involvement into those schools. So definitely that's part of the championing of representation into our industry. How else can we provide these authentic experiences if we don't have people that design the buildings and cities who look like the people that live in those buildings and cities, right? So that's part of that component of going in. Many times these students and these under-resourced communities, their idea of architecture, exposure to architecture is not the way that we see it as trained professionals. So that exposure becomes really important, and we can start, reversing the systems and structural racism that happens in our society that creates the just really pitiful numbers of Black and Latino architects in our industry, and even more disheartening, the number of Black and brown women in our industry. Again, the thing I've been harping about, the beauty of this DI challenge is, having that data that proves the fact that those numbers are disappointing, and the need, the desperate need to go into our communities and build up interest into our professions and to provide that representation that we need in our industry.
I think everything you said is critical, and I really like the idea of partnering with the minority-owned firms. It is really critical, in addition to like you said, the disappointing numbers that have been basically flat for a long time as far as the percentage of Black and brown architects in the profession. We're also have been seeing a decline in minority-owned firms that exist out there. So not only are those numbers low, but they're actually getting lower instead of going in the direction. So, the partnerships and giving access to resources and supporting one another is really critical. So, I really like the element that you were describing here. Now, Herdan, I know you guys have created your own community engagement position within SARC. If you could kind of maybe talk a little bit more about that and sort of what that's intended to do and all things you guys are doing to, like you said, reach out more into the local Southern California community.
Yeah, basically we try to get more organized on things that actually we've been doing for a while. I mean, in previous time, I mean, we work with Habitat for Humanity to build houses, for example, or pavilions or certain things for the homeless in the past. But there was always a little bit more people come, we talk, and we got going with something. So we wanted to get more organized and to be more proactive, to create like longer-term plans, and try to figure it out what organizations and community that we can work with. It has different aspects of how we try to approach it. Some of them have to do with the tradition of the curriculum. So sometimes it's a studio or a seminar. So partner with an organization, like we have a couple of 2 or 3 going right now. We have somebody like Ben Cadwell, who has been a leader in Leimert Park, and we invite him to come and teach a seminar with all the things that he's interested in innovate. But also we have faculties that are working in a project with him and other leaders in that part. We have this organization called Tiny Houses, which are in the desert, and they're trying to create shelter for single homeless mom, specifically. So we have a faculty working with them. But also we have, we call it the think tank, for a better word. We don't have a name for it. And we get involved also with policies and trying to work with different governments or agencies, organizations trying to work. And we try to get grants to work in that thing. And also there are moments that we can almost try to get the school almost as a quasi-office that we can go and help the particular project. But I have to say, it still is very embryological stages. We find that there is, like everything else, there is a complexity and a bureaucracy that comes into play that it need to be navigated. But at the same time, we have other things that have to do with education. In J.E.D.I or making a meaning, we have what we call pop arc. So we take those workshops on the road, and we try to work with high schools, and we try to work with institutions that want to work, that are interested in bringing architecture. As you know, it's terrifying that there is not architecture education in high school whatsoever. Like as bad as other form of education we have, somebody will come out of high school who never really been exposed to what architecture is. So we're trying to partner with institutions and school to do that. It has been way more difficult than we thought it would be to do that. So right now, Jonathan Chan, which is the person who's been working on that, he came on board less than a year ago. So basically, he's trying to build a sustainable strategy in working to that. Still, we are a little bit meeting with people. People sometimes they approach us, different organizations. There is also that interesting culture of the fragmentation of Los Angeles. There is a little bit of that when it comes to non-profit organizations. They all mean well, but I kid you not, in 1 week I had 3 different meetings with 3 different organizations that were tackling exactly the same problem. And they're all trying to fundraise for the same problem. And I was looking at it and I said, can we help you to get the 3 of you together in the same table so we can work all together and figure it out how that can improve? There is all this other aspect too. So I don't want to, I mean, I'm optimistic that the school can do more about that. But it's complex, it's slow. But I think we start to find projects and long-term relationship. The LA River is another one that keeps always coming back, and this is something that we work with different. Again, I don't know how many organizations are interested in the river, and we try to work with that. But we also, at least personally, I gravitate more towards smaller projects that we can be helpful. Like I think that I'm very excited about the Lamer Park and working with Ben Cadwell and see how we can do something there. There is what we were talking before. I think immediacy is important, even if it's just benches or canopies or something that you can show that things is getting made, that we're pushing forward, that we can do those things. I think that's important. So we're trying to be also how we can be working that, but we also understand that policy is important. That a lot of things need to be changed. Like when we get involved in the homelessness a while ago with the city, the city, and we helped bring all the schools of architecture into it, and propose what we are designers, what we have are ideas, and also we need to acknowledge that some of the formulas that have been applied doesn't work. So is there room and will in this organization to hear new ideas? That's what we jump in, and we're trying to figure out how we can also bring innovation, technology, and so on. We have now we got a couple of grants, and we have a new what we call dirty robot outside in the parking lot in a tent that we manufacture with recycled timber. So we're trying to figure out how we can do micro units very fast using artificial intelligence and robots. And we have one of our faculty leading that effort. And that comes from the partnership. So it's a little bit all over the place. It's very, let's say, satellite approach to it, but we're trying to get more active into that. But as I said, right now, at least, I'm speaking for myself, not for Saya here, I'm more excited about maybe a smaller project that we can have a fast impact, even if it's in a small group of families, and see if we can get going, and also to partner with other institutions like Caltech or CalArts or anybody who wants to work with us. We are very open for it. But we are in the embryo of that and trying to develop what is a model that makes sense and what is the future, or what is the possibility for a School of Architecture to be an active participant in the community. And like everything else we talk about it, there's not a clear blueprint. So we're trying to build it up. So if we have this conversation in a year, probably I will be able to give you a more specific path. Where are we going with?
Fair enough. We'll definitely continue to have the conversations, but it's definitely, great to hear all the initiatives and different, ways that you guys are engaged in the community and ideas. I think it's important, and I'm also a believer in the sort of the small projects as well. Just to, you got to get certain things under your belt. Like you said, you can have an immediate impact, and I think that's powerful to have examples not only for you guys to build on, but other people to see out there as well too. So it's always great to hear.
Yeah, it's good. Like when Darren Johnson, one of our faculty, 7 years ago, this is before my time, we did these 2 houses on Habitat for Humanity, and they were really beautiful projects. Okay, there were 2 families that they have now a good house to live in. To me, that was, when you see it, it still blows my mind. I mean, again, it was, I don't know, 10 people, but those 10 people, their life was changed. So if we can all do a little bit of that, it
Yeah.
amounts to something.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because I was already gonna say, I believe in this idea of sort of ripple effect of things. So, if you're able to, impact, two families, those families now are going to impact somebody else, because, hey, I got this situation. Let me explain to you, maybe, their kids, whatever else happens. Like I said, I think there's kind of a wave of positive that comes out of even a single impact. So
maybe their kids will become architects because they grew up in a well-designed house.
Correct.
With the same money of a bad designed house a block away.
Absolutely. I think, Janice, that actually kind of dovetails into the question I was going to get ready to ask you, which is sort of, the formation of the community in the leadership development program. We started off the first cohort with 12 people, and I believe it's already had a big ripple effect of other people that it's affected, and now we're going to do it again for the second time. So if you just want to maybe touch on sort of how that's sort of grown into a community within the industry, but also larger as well.
Yes, I'm so glad we brought up that the word impact, right? Because I thought about this question and how it relates to the leadership program. And yes, its impact on the community, but I'm thinking of community within the architecture industry. So I actually did want to take just a couple of seconds to share my screen, because I'm a visual learner and I have to think about the work that I'm doing. One with Rooted Group and sort of our consulting that we do with organizations in the nonprofit space, but also how that relates to the leadership development program, and now Leader Flow being a new nonprofit that we're focused on growing and making a bigger impact in the community. So I'm gonna just take a 2-second delay to get my screen up here. Can you all see that? Okay, awesome. So this was really just helping me kind of frame my thinking around the response to this question, Lance, and looking at how all of these initiatives are really serving the bigger sort of mission of NOMA. And so with Rooted Group, the work that we do there is we've adopted this sort of framework on how do we really measure our results in all of the work that we're doing. And this framework includes outputs, outcomes, and impact, right? So these are, when we look at the outputs, we're thinking about these activities specifically that are being done by the organization. So in our case, all of the initiatives that we're doing with SoCal NOMA. The outcomes are these are the observed effects of the outputs on the beneficiaries, so the people that are benefiting from these activities. But really where we need to make sure that we're driving home with these initiatives is where the impact is, right? This is the degree to which the outcomes observed by the organization are attributable to its activities. So when I think about SoCal NOMA, right, and everything that we have been doing, we think about the mission of this organization, which is really just rooted in advancing and supporting the education and careers of those who have been historically underrepresented in our industry, right? So we have these programs and initiatives that are put into place to do exactly that. But when we think about the outcomes, we're looking at the observed effects of those programs and initiatives, right? Like, who are the people who are actually getting access to these programs? What are the observed effects of those programs? And then with the impact, this is the degree to which we're actually leading to a more inclusive industry through these programs and initiatives of SoCal NOMA. So when I think about my own work with the leadership development program, I'm like, look, this is all great work that we're doing, right? We're putting this infrastructure in place that, focuses on the personal growth, the increased awareness of self and others, our strengthened community, and our improved skills in management and leadership for developing professionals in this industry. And when I think about the outcomes, I'm like, wow, between last year and this year, a total of 24 participants, and a lot of which they can acclaim that they have been receiving promotions, they've passed their ARE exams, some have obtained licensure in California, some are starting their own projects and organizations like myself. And they've even, gained leadership positions within SoCal NOMA. And that's just amazing to be able to look at. And where I really want to be intentional with Leader Flow and this new nonprofit is what the impact of this is going to be, right? Which is really just focused on increasing the presence of minority professionals in leadership positions in the AEC industry. And so the supplemental outcome of our SoCal NOMA leadership program is Leader Flow. We're really, we've developed these core values around empowering our diverse professionals, encouraging the growth for these participants to really experience like greater fulfillment in their careers. We're also just promoting leadership opportunities. We're looking for ways that we can promote the people who have come through these cohorts and provide opportunities with other firms who are interested in looking for leaders to join their firms. So we want to create the connections with other organizations and other companies who are looking to not only sponsor their own talent, but also look for talent within the Leader Flow cohort. And then once again, just building authentic relationships. We really want to make sure that we're encouraging, supporting one another, and like really developing the mutual respect amongst one another. And, like I said, I'm going to keep driving this home because of how the architecture industry has been for so long, but we really want to focus on transforming workplace culture to achieve a more equitable industry. And I just think about all of these components and think about, hey, like what we're all doing is great. And I think the DEI challenge definitely takes a really hard look at being able to do exactly this, is measure the results. We need to know that measuring results isn't going to be easy, but we can't get stuck in the outcomes portion of all of the work that we're doing by just knowing that these numbers are there who have attended these events. We really are trying to track these outputs, outcomes, and impacts so that we know that there's actually some real change happening and that we can quantify that real change. So I just wanted to take a minute to sort of respond to that in that capacity and hopefully leave this framework because this is something personal that I'm working through with my involvement with Rooted Group and the development of Leader Flow as a nonprofit organization. So I hope this is something that all of us can kind of take with you all on the call, and anyone who may be having questions about this type of work or how to think through their own initiatives, they can think through it in the same context.
Thank you for sharing that. It's funny because you basically just said everything I was hoping you would have said as without even prompting you on it, things I'm thinking about, kind of ideas that, this kind of really applies to everybody here, but, all the things that we sort of conceptualize as what we hoped might happen, what we thought could happen, I think are starting to happen. We're seeing all this through, the partnerships with each of you and different organizations just to, see these things come to fruition has really been powerful. It's been humbling, impressive, all at the same time. So, the impacts that you described there, Janice, are really critical. And the one bullet point about, people getting licensed, people getting promoted, people starting their own companies, that's the ripple that I look for and go, okay, and now that's going to go on. Hey, I'm going to start my own firm. I'm going to go hire 5 more people. And now that's going to impact people. You just can kind of, I hope see that string sort of playing out down the line, as we go further with this. So, it's really, thank you for sharing that for sure. I'm going to close with 2 things. Number one, just any sort of final thoughts, next steps from each of you guys about, things that you guys have coming up in the future, et cetera. But then also we do have a couple of questions in the chat that I want to make sure we get to as well too. So Janice, I'll come back around to you first, I guess, just with any, kind of next steps or final thoughts.
Sure. So I am happy to announce that Leader Flow as a nonprofit organization has officially been accepted for fiscal sponsorship with community partners. So that basically means that we're able to launch as a project of community partners and we can begin our fundraising efforts. So everyone on the call, be ready to hear from us. Looking to scale our program to at least 2 to 3 cities in our launch year. And we just have a lot of work that we're looking forward to accomplishing within our partnerships with NOMA, within casting a wider net for, who we can make connections with within the industry. For facilitation opportunities, we obviously want to include a lot of NOMA members in leadership positions to help join in the mentorship of developing professionals. And so now John and I have really been hitting the ground running since the start of the year. And it's very awesome to see how much has transpired in just only a couple of months. So we're really looking forward to a steady growth, but something that's going to be impactful and something that's still going to be able to really maintain the integrity of what started with the leadership development program here at SoCalNOMA.
Fantastic, thank you. Hernan, I'm gonna go to you next for any final thoughts.
Well, thank you. This was fantastic to be part of it. I think the next steps for us actually are less flashy and fast. Is to really dig deep into creating infrastructure and a series of policies within the school to make sure that all these things became permanent in the fabric of the institution. And so it's not the will of a particular group, of a particular leadership, a particular group of faculty, but it became part of the mission and the state and the mission of the school. We are on our way on that. So we want to finish, not to finish, but we want to at least secure and plan those bases for whoever comes later can keep growing on that. So that's part of the commitment. Again, in a very dynamic and independent and fluent institution like SIA, those things are important to put in place. So the next phase is a little bit more quiet and more behind the scenes, but equally important and for the future and the stability of these changes.
Yeah, absolutely. To put the systems in place, we talk about systematic change. That's exactly what you're describing here. So that's great for sure. Jose, I'll go to you for any final thoughts.
Yeah, thank you very much for it was an honor being part of this panel and this group and this conversation. I think for me, I look at SoCalNOMA and in the unique position that we're in Los Angeles. LA is in a lot of ways incubator laboratory for a lot of the movements that can happen throughout this country, and SoCalNOMA is at the forefront of that, and they have been trailblazers in a lot of the initiatives for the DEI challenge. I see a lot of it in the we're involved with LFRT in the guidelines that were developed, the J.E.D.I guidelines for that group. A lot of that came from this initial challenge, and I see that potential moving forward as well. I don't see how you can leave this panel conversation not be inspired by what Janice has provided us today, what she's doing and the group is doing through the leadership group and the leader flow. I think it's been an inspirational part, definitely a highlight for me as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you all for participating without question. We do have a couple of comments in the chat that I think, Jose, unfortunately might be all directed to you, but I'll let everybody else answer if they would like as well too. So 2 questions I see in the chat, and if anybody else has questions, if they want to raise their hand, that's fine too. One question from Gabrielle Bullock. I don't know if she's still on the line, but she said, other than addressing J.E.D.I in practice, recruiting, work, and workplace belonging, can you speak to if and how your organization has addressed J.E.D.I in your design work, design process, and the team makeup? Representation and cultural connection is paramount in authentic design.
I think a lot about that component of it and how that applies. And one thought that I've had is that sustainability was always this big buzzword, green architecture, for the better part of the last decade and more so. But when you talk about sustainability as a buzzword and things that you do, it's not like we didn't do green architecture or sustainability in the past. It's the way we practice. And I think equity falls into the same thing. Now, what's happened with sustainability is that there's committees formed, there's checklists and commissioning agents and other components that measure how sustainability applies to a project, to a team, to we have dashboards with this information. Equity doesn't have that, but I think it can have the same type of rigor to it that sustainability has too. And so one thing is kind of having those measuring tools that we talked about, that data gathering, but also making equity the same level of value all these firms have that they deal with sustainability as a principal of design as a value to your firm. And moving forward, it should be a measurable component to the work that we do, how we build our project teams, how we design buildings in our community. We can apply that same rigor to our design process.
Great. I don't know if anybody else wants to answer that question. I think that might have just been for you, Jose. The second question, which is maybe for everybody, which is from Kevin Bianco, who asked, do you have any suggestions on how orgs can work on the equity and inclusion in their DEI projects? I think, diversity is sort of one component that I think everybody can get their handle around, but, the equity and inclusion part is, maybe not as obvious in every case. So I don't know if anybody would like to take a shot at that one.
I can take a shot at that one. And I'm learning about this as we are, all kind of learning about this as well. But I think one thing that has come up in my work with Rooted Group as well is just understanding really where equity is applying, right? Like, where are you actually focusing equity in the work that you're doing? And the reason why I say that is because oftentimes, we may get contacted by organizations that are just looking to ensure equity throughout their hiring process, or maybe ensure equity through their fundraising or grant making process. Like, they want to be able to make sure that other organizations have access to grant making and fundraising. But there's so many sort of steps that go into that process that sometimes you can kind of get lost in translation with that. So I think really it takes, you have to, one, make sure that everyone who is a part of the decision making, who is a part of that initiative, that project, whatever the circumstances are really aligned in what they want that to look like. Really providing some clear definition to what equity is applying to and what it needs to look like. So in the case of a nonprofit, they may be wanting to make sure, or a funding organization for that matter, they may be wanting to make sure that there are some smaller organizations who they maybe never, encountered or interacted with their type of grant making or fundraising. But how do you actually get in contact with them, right? How are you, what type of effort are you putting in on the equity piece to make sure that you are ensuring equity throughout that process? Because there's a level of engagement and a level of commitment from, your side as an organization for what that's going to look like. So I think for me, it would start off with, one, being aligned in that with the decision makers and whoever is a part of this initiative. And then two, really providing some clear definition on what that's going to look like for your organization.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. If anybody else has a comment or thought on that question.
I was just going to add that it takes investment. It isn't automatic. We can rely on what I talked about earlier, that I have major optimism around the emergent professionals, people coming from the bottom up. But I think it takes also investment in the organizations too. Bring in that equity training, bring in learning the historical foundations is a key component of making change from the top down, and an understanding of how to make that happen, whether that's, having pay equity surveys and promotion surveys, creating safe environments for conversations through affinity groups, whatever that piece of investment that's required. I think it's really important, and it doesn't come without a price. So just like we invest in training Revit users, we got to also invest in equity as well.
Excellent point. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. I don't know if anybody has, I don't think anybody has their hands up. So I think I'm gonna call time here and say thank you to Janice and Jose and Hernan. I really appreciate you guys all participating in this, not only in the panel today, but just our partnerships, our work, all the work we've done together over the past couple of years here, and still work to do going forward here. I really appreciate all of you guys. And again, I'm gonna kind of leave everybody with what I said at the beginning about partnerships, which is doing the work together. We appreciate everybody's support and being on our side with everything, but partners that we can work together with are what's really critical for kind of growing and sort of advancing all these issues that we're talking about in this panel and over the course of the whole conference here is really what's going to make it happen. So thank you guys all. I appreciate it. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining us this morning, I should say. With that, I guess I'm going to turn it back to Corinne or Leslie or somebody here. Take it away.
So I want to say thank you to all of our moderators, all of our panelists, the sponsors, the team behind the Encompass planning, and the AIA Los Angeles staff. I want to remind everyone that we're back at it tomorrow, bright and early, and we have 2 wonderful panels set up